Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of Heresy Hammer. Quite a lot has happened over the last few weeks since the last episode, so I have a feeling this is going to be a long one. I wouldn't be surprised if we get towards 4 hours. So we might be here a while. Get yourself comfy, grab a coffee, I don't know, a beer or Red Bull, something along those lines. Take your trousers off, take your shoes and socks off. Let's get into it. So first things first, my fellow hosts, one of them, a trained killer, and the other one, a man who wears his shirts one size down, Lee and Rob.
Hello there.
So guys, how's it going? Lee, how you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad. Looking forward to this one. Rob, how's it going?
I am well.
You are well?
Yes, I'm good. Although I've got quite an easy show today, as people will see, because you guys have been given the majority of the hard work, and I can
it's going to be a graft. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so on screen you should see our social media tags: Lee at Death from Shadows, Rob at Metis Miniatures, and myself at Ranko30k. I think we're. Do you guys do Twitter? Are we all on Twitter?
I do Twitter now. Yeah, okay. It's a bizarre space that I don't really understand. Lots of retweeting, and I find it more confusing than Instagram. But
okay,
I do have Twitter.
You have the Twitter. Okay, cool. Rightio. So next up, quick shout to the sponsors. First up, Cryptic Cabin. Local gaming store in Woking and Berkshire, local to myself and Rob. Hit those guys up. Any of your Warhammer gear, they've got all of the Citadel range. They do Star Wars Legion. They do Song of Fire and Ice. They sell Scale 75 paints, Vallejo, weathering powders, Pro Acryl. I think they've recently just taken on. So check those guys out. And there's a link in the show notes as well, guys. So if you click on that and purchase through the link, we get a tiny little bit of kickback, and just pays for a few things. Keeps Rob's hair products stocked up nicely. Do you know what I mean? Something that I know nothing about.
But hopefully by the time people see this, they will be able to order their Heresy box set, right? So make sure you use the link to order.
Please do, guys.
Set through Cryptic Cabin as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if you're in the local area, they've got some 6x4 gaming tables. I think they've got 5. I think they're a tenner for 3 hours. So check those guys out. Ben and the dudes down there, top guys. So that'd be great. And also Rob's painting service, commission painting service, Metis Miniatures.
Yeah.
Rob paints pretty much anything you'll give him, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll paint. For 40k, AOS, Star Wars Legions again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're booked up for this, as we said before, booked up for this year, but I'm now starting to take bookings for 2023. And actually, we're getting to the point where we're starting to book it up until sort of March and April time now. So if you are thinking about getting something done, be it a small thing, big thing, a Kratos or a Space Marine hero for Horus Heresy, then get in contact, because
80 Marines.
80 Marines. Get in contact, because it will get booked up fast again.
So reach out to you on the socials. Facebook.
Email is the best way to email.
Okay. And you've got a link to that on your Instagram or something. Indeed. You've got a link tree.
You'll be able to find that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Absolutely great. Fantastic. So cool. So for this episode, in the main section, we'll be doing a new feature. We'll be running this episode and the next called Choosing Your Legion, where we'll be having a look at all the different legions, probably spending like 10 minutes chatting about them. We won't do any crazy deep dives into the fluff, because there's people out there that are a hell of a lot better at that than us. We'll just have a look at what makes them tick, maybe chat about a few characters, chat about the Primarchs, colour schemes, weapons of choice, some units, a few other bits and pieces like that. So so that's coming up a little bit later on. So before we get into that, let's go into our next section, which is looking at models that you guys have tagged on social media using the Heresy Hammer hashtag. And there has been a shitload over the last few weeks. So we really appreciate guys to keep them coming. It's really cool having a look through them every few days or so, hitting the refresh. So so first up on the left-hand side, we've got at Sick Today, a nice grimy, battered up World Eater.
Yeah,
there.
that's really good, isn't it?
What do you guys reckon? It's nice, isn't it?
So so there's two things I want to say about this. So I think the blood splatters are just the right amount for models, because I think that you can go over the top or not enough, but I think this is sort of Goldilocks level of blood splatters, which is just right. But I think this is also, and correct me if I'm wrong, using a Tortuga body as well. Is that right? So
it looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think that looks awesome. Yeah, he's done a great job with that.
Done a cracking job with that. Yeah, that sort of really battered up bronze looks really nice. Sort of heavily weathered. Yeah, and then next to it we've got JKB painting. Quite a contrast from the guy on the left. That super shiny, nice, clean Blood Angel. Rob, what unit's that guy from? I can't remember.
He's from the Crimson Paladins.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
he's using the Unreal Wargaming Palace bases on that one as well.
Right. Yeah, it's very nice and clean, nice and crisp.
Should I tell you an interesting story about these?
Please do.
So
they're yours.
They are mine. were mine. So I got Jack to paint these for me last year when I booked him in. A big sort of 5,000, 6,000 points of Blood Angels, and I didn't have much time at that point. I wanted a Blood Angel force, but I just didn't have any time to do it myself. So Jack sort of side hustle is also commission painting, so I got him to do it. But eventually he sort of loved them so much that he kind of offered to buy them off me, almost like a buyout, like a hostile takeover bid of this commission. And he bought them, and every time I see them, I can't help but feel sort of like bitterly jealous that these could have been mine. But he's done such a good job with this, because if you go to his Instagram, he's worked really hard over the past few months on them, because they are such tricky models to get right, and they're so intricate. I mean, the Crimson Paladins, you can see how much gold is on them, but even the Angel's Tears are super highly detailed models, and he's just done a really neat, careful job with an amazing looking red scheme, and the gold is fantastic. But yeah, bitterly jealous, but I'm sure I'll get around to doing Angels.
Are you doing a Blood Angels force?
Yeah, I will be. Yeah, can't not now. I think.
Sold them
again.
Later. Doing them again.
I'll do it. I've got a bit more time now to be able to invest in it.
Commissioning Jack to do them.
Yeah, do that again.
Cool. Right, let's have a look at the next slide. So we've got Rama Minis. I think that's how it's pronounced. If I've got that wrong, I'm very sorry, dude. And a nice Mortis Reaver, a nice AT Mortis Reaver there. Nice bit of weathering, nice few streaks, very nice vibrant red against the white. Looks really cool. Guy's done a great job on that one. What do you guys reckon?
The thing I love about this is if you told me that was a 28mm Titan, I'd believe you. The insane, the detail in the models is insane, isn't it? It just blows my mind. But yeah, no, it's awesome. I love the Mortis scheme. The red, black, really and cool. The kind of white is, it's an awesome scheme.
Yeah, really good, really good. And next to that, we've got the 10th Praetor and a nice Iron Hands Moritat we've got going on there. More of a sort of heavy metal kind of scheme with that, with the edge highlighting. But yeah, it looks really cool. Looks really good.
It will look really striking on this episode. I quite like the orange. The orange works really well, and he's really lent into that kind of like the sort of like fluorescent paints, I guess, maybe, which is good, because the Iron Hands, I think, or any Black Legion can just be so boring. So having that pop of colour here and there, I think, is a good choice. Yeah,
good work, guys. Well done. Next up, we've got Davonite painting.
I've not seen these. These are good.
Some nice Dark Angels there. Yeah. Rob, you're a Dark Angels fan.
Yeah. No, these are really nice. I think that Dark Angels is an interesting one, because when I've done them previously, like when I did my first kind of iteration, they were quite highlighted. But I think that they can go either way, highlight them in greys and blues or whatever, or you can just leave them as flat black and weather them. And a few checks and a few picked out details with the red, I think, looks really good. He's done a really, really cool job here, I think. That looks great. And I like the transfer placement as well. And the hexagrammaton little symbol thing. The transfers on the Dark Angels is really cool, actually. Like the shit, some great hidden gems in it.
I really like the white transfers. because I think the Legion symbol is normally red, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of the white. I think it looks quite striking against the black and the red.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, really good. Not gone too mad with the weathering, but there's enough on there. Looks good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
big fan. And next to that, we've got the Chonky Imperial Fist Predator by 40k painter.
I don't remember if we talked about this, caused sort of a mass panic on the heresy scene. Everything was going to be this size after
this monster type thing. Yeah. It's gone for a nice battered, weathered up look there. I really like it. It's a nice chipping as well. The blades had a proper kick in, hasn't it?
Classic heresy. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, good job. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Happy days. So next up.
Just a shame he's an Imperial Fist.
Yeah. So yeah, on the left, 30k Misfit. I think I met this guy. I think this is Al. I think he came to your painting course, Rob.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. And I sat next to him. Yeah, really good dude. Yeah, and he's bashed out some nice Sons of Horus, some contracted terms.
Yeah, as a commission painter, you sort of get worried after seeing when these people come to your course. See these people paint these things that are just as good a quality as yours. You do get a little bit worried that they can muscle in on your territory. His stuff is just it's just really good. And I think he would say himself that since coming to the course that his skills have developed, because he's just done a great job, and it's been great seeing him go from strength to strength. I think he was doing World Eaters before. I think that's right. It's awesome. I particularly like the bases with these. Actually, they look really realistic.
I was going to say the bases.
Yeah, really good. Those tiny little sort of bits of pebbly sort of slate.
I like seeing green Sons of Horus Terminators as well.
Yeah.
Normally they're all black.
As opposed to yeah. But yeah, he posts a lot, and he's rattling through the Sons of Horus at the moment. So yeah, he's doing a cracking job.
Yeah.
And next to that we have Aggie Nightlord Guy from Back to Warhammer 40k.
Yeah.
Yes, some nice bronzing on that chest piece there.
I'm loving that blue.
Good. Yeah, that blue's awesome, isn't it? Yeah, it's a great look. What do you reckon, Rob?
Yeah, I've got a big Night Lords commission coming up in September or October, so I'm sort of looking at all Night Lords schemes at the moment, being like, oh, how did they do that, and what colour is that, and how could I put that in? I like it. I like the contrast between the so it's quite a vibrant blue, but it still remains quite dark. But I suspect that's probably the photo. But I quite like the really the big contrast between the metallics and the sort of the matted down blue. I think that looks really, really cool.
Yeah,
it'd be great to see this sort of zoomed out. I will go check after the show if he's got any more pictures. But yeah, he's done a great job. A model to be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the purple against the blue. That looks good.
It's interesting to see.
Really sets it off, doesn't it? Yeah, it's good effort. Good work, guys. Next one on the left, Inquisitor Nero.
Oh yes.
Oh yes, that's good. That's nice. That's
great atmospheric photography there. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really. Is that sorry, Lee?
Is that a 3D printed one?
I think the helm might be. I think the arms definitely might be, but I don't know if the body's a Tortuga. But it doesn't look. It's not one that I've seen previously, but I would guess that's probably 3D printed, but it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's cool. I like the helmet.
I think the weathering on the metallics are particularly delicious.
Yeah, just about to comment on that. It's really good. It's the first thing when I saw that picture, I was like, boom. Yeah, the verdigris around the rivets and stuff.
And he's picked out every rivet in bronze in that model.
Yeah. I can appreciate that level of detail.
Yeah, that is impressive.
Yeah, very good. And next on the right, we've got Garvial Paints with some Blood Angel guys.
Yeah, I've seen this guy on Insta actually. I think I follow him actually, but he's done some stuff. Yeah, I like this. Good to see some snow bases as well, because very rarely see that.
No,
absolutely. Yeah, I like it. Good. Yeah, but against the white, looks good.
White, contrast.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Lee?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I like the contrast between the white and the red.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks awesome, doesn't it? Yeah. I have to check out some more of his work in the next couple of days. Keep an eye on what he's up to.
Yeah.
Right, cool. And then let's go to the next one. What we got next? So here you go. So we've got the 1-2.
Australia's finest, right?
Yeah, the 1-2 punch combo of the guys from Australia. Yeah. So on the left we've got Rapt Imperialis, Kieran, I mean, if you're into Heresy, you'll know Kieran's work. You would have seen Kieran's work, and if you're new to Heresy scene, check out all of Kieran's stuff, and Adam on the right hand side, Full Circle Hobby. These two guys have been very, very good. So where do you start really? Kieran's amazing. Been doing Alpha Legion as well for years. What do you reckon, Rob?
I mean, what can you say? I mean, so I had to ask Kieran the other day how old he was, because I'd been speaking to him on Discord, and he said he'd just finished he'd recently finished his masters, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I finished my masters when I was 22, and I was like, Jesus, if he's 22 and pumping up stuff like this, I mean, imagine what he's going to be like when he's in his 30s. But he's in fact 32, so that made me feel a bit better. But I think that particularly the thing about Kieran, which I always really, really admire, and the same can be said for Adam actually as well, but the thing about Kieran I really admire is his just absolute precision or attention to detail. And I think that really raises his models above sort of lots of other painters, because his attention to detail is just insane, you know. And the squad that he's doing at the moment with these guys, which are the Tortuga bodies, those all those Palatine Aquillas, they're all done with green stuff. You know, it's done with a press, but you know, each one he's thought really, really carefully about. He's thought really carefully about the posing, really carefully about where the transfers and things should go. But I think for me, the biggest thing that I really like and admire about Kieran's work is true metallic work as well. You know, when you see his blades and the contrast he has in his blades, he's doing really interesting things with true metallic metals that you don't often see. And I think that's absolutely amazing, because we're often with really great painters saturated with non-metallic metals, and I think Kieran does a particularly amazing job with true metallics, which I think look better on the tabletop than non-metallic metals.
Absolutely, yeah. And then just off to the right, Full Circle Hobby. Sorry, Adam has been painting just possibly one of the greatest armies, the Heresy armies on the internet in the world at the moment. Another level, the stuff that Adam's putting out. Doesn't put out a great deal of work, but when it comes out, you just, good God. Yeah, so highly detailed, great conversions. Everything's exactly where it should be. It's just, everything he does is, I don't know what to say, really. Lee, what do you reckon?
Yeah, they're right, aren't they?
Yeah. Bit vanilla, you know?
Yeah. Similar.
But yeah.
Yeah, I fucking love these. Like, just everything about them, like the color choice. I know it's red, but red, black, green, and white. I mean, those console screens, like, just
it's unbelievable, isn't it?
I mean,
unbelievable.
I could paint the green to black, and I would get pissed off doing that. To then go in and do all the little lines and dots and blips, and I would just. Yeah,
he was inspired by Star Wars. I think he researched Star Wars X-wing.
Okay,
and he copied it onto there. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, now you say that, you can see the square of when they go into the bit to drop the bombs.
Yeah.
But these are insane, aren't they? Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been following him for a while now, but just unreal.
It's just a shame that the guys live so far away that we'll probably never get to see them.
It's
in the flesh, you know. So to speak.
Yeah, strong. There's a strong Australian, strong Melbourne sort of like painting scene, I think.
Yeah. The guys are great. Yeah. So check those guys out if you're not following them already.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what we got next? So Heresy Thursday, going back a couple of weeks now, and we had this douchebag on the left-hand side, Lucius, of the Emperor's Children. What an absolute knob this guy is. But a great model. I really like the model. I really like it. I like the pose. You know, he's got that kind of arrogant swagger kind of look to it. You know, the sort of like snarling, even though he's got many scars across his face. He's just such a prick. Yeah. What do you guys reckon?
Go on, Lee. You give your thoughts first.
So I'm a big fan of this. I like it a lot, but I know a lot of people were moaning that it's a similar pose to Tarvis, yeah. And they are quite similar, but I mean, I don't collect EC, so that doesn't really bother me. But I'm a big fan of this. I love the torso. I mean, I don't even know what it is. Like the belts going down the torso.
The BDSM sort
of. It's got very, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like you can just imagine him clipping himself into a sex swing. Getting raped by a donkey.
Good lord. Good lord. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Although the sword as well, isn't the sword is the sword meant to be the
one, the Fulgrim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't remember the name. Yeah.
The blade of the lair.
Yeah, the blade of the lair, the silver blade of the lair.
Yeah.
But is that not a different size on the Fulgrim model?
It's totally a different size. Yeah, they've definitely shortened it. It's hard to tell in that photo, I think, because of the angle. And I think that once we see it, but because again, this model has been 3D sculpted. It looks quite angular, first of all, whereas the Fulgrim blade, because it was done at a time where there was no 3D sculpting, it's quite finesse, that blade. So there was always going to be a difference between the two, but I think there's a size. Maybe it's like the ring from Lord of the Rings, right? Maybe it changes shape and size.
Yeah, I mean, it's big, so it can kind of do whatever the fuck it likes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, I'm a big fan of the model. I like it a lot. I understand that the people moaning about the poses, but then I feel like nowadays they kind of go for a generic tactical rock pose with characters. So I mean, kind of
just learn to accept it, right?
Yeah, I think or just make your own. You know, it's like just deal with it really, because they're all going to look like that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I like it a lot.
Nice. Yeah, it's really good, really good. And then the Sakaran, which is the best looking tank in Heresy.
Easily. Heresy iconic, isn't it, this one? So I think that, I think the big thing that stuck out for me is that I couldn't tell the difference between this and a resin tank. I think they've done a great job of sort of, because I think the Sakaran was done on one of the first 3D printed models. I think when you look on the inside, you can tell it's been 3D printed. So I would imagine it's probably not that hard to transport it over, but it's really good to see that they're the same. And I think that people who've got resin Sakarans, it won't stand out against plastic ones. I think that when this was dropped, I was expecting some sort of news that went along the lines of, and you will be able to buy an Arcus sort of turret for it. You'll be able to plasma for it. Whereas at the moment, if you wanted those, they're only available from Forge World, which is really, I think, really, really interesting. But I suspect in the next few months, or half a year or whatever, we will probably get the Sakaran in its different forms. And I think that the other big thing for me that stood out is around the weapons. So it's always been, you can magnetize the sponsons in, so they come in and out of the thing, but you can't magnetize the weapons currently. So the resin one comes with a heavy bolter and it comes with the las cannon, but you it's physically impossible to magnetize those so they come in and out. So when you build your Sakaran, your plastic Sakaran, you're going to have to make a choice about what exactly what sponsons that you want with it. Because I think you're going to be stuck with them, because I think it's probably too hard to magnetize them. But I don't know what to go for. I think I always sort of think of this as, because of the accelerator cannon, more of an anti-infantry. So I'd probably go for Volkite myself, rather than the las cannons, because I never really use it for anti-tank. But I think for me, the Volkite looks really cool, and we've not had the opportunity to use Volkite sponsons on things before. So I'll probably go for that when it comes out.
Absolutely.
I mean, the best thing about this model is not having to cut bits off at the back.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh god, yeah. And then spend ages trying to get it flat and
green stuff in all the holes you've made from cutting it off. And
It'll be interesting to see in the hand, I think, like how it goes together and how many pieces it goes together in, because I think the thing about the newer GW plastics is that it's always in like 1 trillion pieces. So it'll be interesting to see how many you need to put together. But I think that it's I'm glad it's gone to plastic. I think that's great.
Oh God, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Right then. Next
And it looks so good. It looks just like the resin one. Like
exactly.
Yeah, quality.
Awesome.
Right then, what we got? Okay, cool. And I can't remember if it was last week. Had the announcement that all the legions are going to get legion-specific heads and shoulder pads.
Yeah.
Starting with these guys and the Sons of Horus, which we'll see in the next slide. These are cool. It's good that they're doing this. I'm really glad that these are dropping with the box set again, which we'll chat about in a second.
Great.
Which is awesome. And Rob, you being a fan of the guys on the wall.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Yeah. So for me, these are when I saw these, I absolutely love these. So I think that for anybody looking to get into Horus Heresy, I would really suggest you learn how to apply transfers if you don't know how already, because for me, the transfers just look better than embossed shoulder pads, and your transfer sheet will be less money overall and will take you further with your army. So I think that's the big thing. I know some people don't know how to do it, but there are literally a million. I do YouTube tutorials on how to do transfers, and it's really it's a doddle. But the heads, I think, were an interesting choice. So I think these are obviously designed for Mark 6, but for me, I think that they will look better on Mark 3 because of the way that the plow shape on the helm. And I won't be using them on Mark 6 because I really like the beaks. I think the beaks look fantastic. But I will definitely use them on the Mark 3 because I think they're better than the old Forge World. The older resin ones that kind of looked a bit like Viking helms, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I love these, but yeah, not for Mark 6, but definitely for Mark 3, I'll use them.
Right. The interesting thing I find with these is if you look at the 3 on the left, they almost look like they are beaky.
Yeah.
Like I want to see them in my hands to see what they look like from a side profile. Yeah.
I suspect they've taken just the sphere and then they've just rejigged the sort of lower half of the helm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's exactly what they've done. But yeah, they look really cool. But I just love the beak helm. I think the beak helm just looks so great. So I don't want to get rid of it. Lee's screwing his face up about that. Lee not feeling the beaky helms. No, I'm not. I don't hate the beaky. I just think it looks a bit dumb. Okay. You're entitled to your opinion. I mean, your price is wrong, but you are wrong, but it's fine. Yeah. I mean, I'm not. But... Right, let's have a look at the next one. Let's have a look at the Sons of Horus. Here they are. I was born in the dark. When I first saw these, I was like, these are cool. And then someone did a sort of Photoshop, I guess, and it went around the WhatsApp groups and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, it's not for me. No. But then I'm not the Sons of Horus guy. They're a bit Bane, but also they're a bit Miss Piggy as well. I think Miss Piggy and Bane's love child. Yeah. I think that once that I sort of made the connection with Miss Piggy, I think I could not stop seeing Miss Piggy, and I think that was the thing about these. And I think unfortunately they're a no from me. Again, I'd like to see him in the flesh before I make a decision. Right. I feel like they would look good with like Mark 5 or something. Yeah, I think so. Okay, that's a good point. That's a good shout. Yeah, but again, I'd want to see him. I like the. I guess it's a sergeant's helmet. Yeah, I think a load of them on a command squad or something would look quite cool. Yeah, and that suggests to me as well, if you were to paint the snout or the main part of it gold, actually, rather than the green, perhaps that would be enough to do it. I don't know. It's just Miss Piggy and Bane, as we say. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. When I first saw them like that, I was the same as you, Paul. I was like, holy shit, they look amazing. Yeah. And then I saw that picture that someone had photoshopped, and I was like, oh. So I'd like to see him in the flesh.
it's good that we're getting two options. There's sort of a bare head option and the guy with the plume.
Yeah.
So you could mix it up. Because I'm trying to think back to some of the previous resin ones, or the ones that were available now. They come as just 10. Yeah, is that right? There's not 11 in the pack.
You're correct. No, it's just 10. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just 10.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, it's pretty cool. They've got a bare head
fair
option.
one.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, hadn't noticed that until now. Awesome. Yeah, and the pads look cool as well. I know we were just chatting about the decals and about transfers and stuff, but I think for me, embossed pads that have got a smaller seal look okay. Like these ones, for example, I think will work a little bit better than maybe the Imperial Fist one.
I just have nightmares of it, because it's when you paint this, it's not just the front that you have to paint. You have to paint on the side bit and on the flat side bit, and that bit takes forever.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And depending on how intricate the design is, you can spend fucking hours just painting something that would take you a few minutes to slap a transfer on.
Cover that bad boy.
So something like this, where you could just use a single color, like do it silver or black or whatever, I think would be easier. Like the Imperial Fist one, where you have to start painting the white in. You're going to lose your mind, aren't you?
Anything white is just a nightmare as well. It takes layers and layers to get it nice and clean.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Oh, we're here.
Yeah, that's it.
We're here. So after the break, we'll be having a look at the main section of this episode, which is Choose Your Legion. So we'll go to a quick break and we'll see you guys in a minute.
Cool.
Right, then, guys, welcome back. This is the main section of this episode. It's, as you can see on the screen, it says Choose Your Legion. And we'll be going through the traitors this time round, and then the filthy loyalists in the next episode. So over to you, Lee, to kick us off with the perverts of the heresy. The Emperor's Children.
The Emperor's Children. I don't know why you've put 2 next to the Emperor's Children.
Editing error. Through.
So the Third Legion. So this was actually a difficult one for me, because I kind of know nothing about the Emperor's Children, so I had to do a bit of a deep dive today. But essentially still don't know a huge amount about the Emperor's Children. They're not really a legion that's ever interested me. I like the color scheme. But beyond that, they're just
you like the pretty colours.
Yeah,
loads of purple.
They're a bit mincy for me. I don't know. Like I don't know. But it was interesting researching them. Going back to the start of the Unification Wars, it was interesting that the Emperor was taking the children from the nobility of people he'd conquered and was giving them into the Third Legion as recruits. So basically all their initial recruits were nobility, which kind of fits in with the perfection of the Emperor's Children. I always imagine them with kind of whiny, toffee-nosed voices and, names like Lord Fauntleroy and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how they started, and then that kind of spread across Terror, and basically it started as almost like a tithe to the Emperor, and it became seen as almost like an honor for rich families to give their children to the Emperor's Children. The gene seeds would create kind of these pale skins and purple eyes and the white hair that you kind of see on Fulgrim in some of them. And in the early stages of the kind of Great Crusade and the latter stages of the Unification Wars, they weren't really used like the other legions. Like most legions are used as kind of shock troops, weren't they? They kind of just get in and smash stuff up, whereas these were more kind of used as bodyguards and emissaries. So they would be sent with someone to a planet to act as a bodyguard to kind of, you know, diplomats or whatnot. So it required more of an element of finesse than you would get with, like, you imagine sending a bunch of world eaters with an emissary to a planet and there's just carnage. But like, he's not even made it off the ship. Got a chain axe in the back of their head. And that kind of suited the Legion as well. So they would work well with like the Imperial Army, and they would often be slotted in and used alongside and even commanding Imperial Army units, which other legions would just flat out refuse to do. They would use Imperial Army, but they wouldn't work and certainly wouldn't be in command of Imperial Army units because they kind of saw it as beneath them. Whereas the Emperor's Children kind of, I don't know, just the way they worked, that they were just good at it, really. So they're almost diplomats from the start. And they, from the very beginning, had the whole kind of perfection, trying to master things. And as we know, as the Great Crusade and Heresy goes on, that became kind of obsessive to the point of being fucking mental.
it was their undoing, right? I mean,
it was kind of, and the seeds were kind of sown from the very beginning. So yeah, it's interesting, but they were the only legion that was allowed to wear and I have to remember the name of it. I'm trying to read here in my notes. The Palatine
Aquila.
Is it the Palatine Aquila?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So this was the Proximan betrayal. So they'd been sent as bodyguards with the Emperor and Legio Custodes, and basically they were attacked by vortex weapons, and I don't know, like some fucking lunatics that wanted the Emperor dead. And basically they fought and died to a man to protect the Emperor. The Emperor was able to escape, but every single Emperor's children that was with him died fighting to protect the Emperor. And that's kind of basically where the Emperor was like, these are my boys. And they were allowed to wear the Palatine Aquila. And it's interesting because I know it was being mentioned recently on social medias of like kind of who cares, because like the Aquila's everywhere, but this was literally the Emperor's personal stamp. This was his iconography. It wasn't the Aquila. It wasn't the two-headed, you know, what we see now with Mars and Terra.
Yeah.
It was literally the symbol of the Emperor. And up till then, no legion was ever allowed to wear that symbol. And even only certain people within the higher echelons of like the Imperium were kind of given that symbol to wear. So it was a massive thing, and it kind of shows the Legion, really. You know, they were kind of held in real high esteem and this kind of perfection, and you know, they've been given the Emperor's kind of personal iconography. And people always talk about like the Death Guard as fallen the furthest, but I kind of feel like these guys fell the furthest because they went from such a high standing to just nose diving into absolute debauchery. It was interesting, but they as the Great Crusade started, they were always low in numbers, but they had the Gene Seed disaster, and this is something I'd not heard about before. But essentially, once they'd taken over the lunar gene hubs, I think it was the Sons of Horus, was it, that launched the attack on them?
On Luna, yeah.
They were moving stockpiles of gene seed to Luna, and there's differing stories of what happened, but basically the ship either vanished, crashed, or was destroyed by unknown persons, and that held a large number of the Emperor's children's gene seed. So basically after that, they had limited numbers to continue building the Legion. And this is at a time when all the other legions were kind of spiraling ahead and getting larger and larger and larger, becoming operational, that they took the hit. And And then I'm just reading my notes now because I can't really remember what happened now. So at a similar time, there was a viral kind of attack on the gene seeds on Terra. So they obviously didn't send all the gene seed to Luna. So there was like a viral attack on the gene seed stores of all the legions on Terra. And basically it took the Emperor to come in. The Mechanicum and Biomagos were trying to fix it, and they couldn't really stop it from spreading. And then Big Emps himself had to step in and manage to stop it. But by the time he'd stopped it, basically all the Emperor's Children's gene seed was completely destroyed. So they basically had no gene seed stocks. And essentially with gene seed, you have to take it from a dead Marine to then implant it into another Marine without the stores. So they can keep producing more, but it takes a lot longer. So this basically kind of stunted the Emperor's Children from the very beginning, because they never had the numbers that the other legions had. And actually, by the time they were reunited with Fulgrim, there was only 200 legionnaires left.
Whoa.
In the whole legion. Yeah, I didn't know this. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you think this is at a time when the other legions are kind of hitting 100,000 guys, 150,000 guys when they were reunited. They had 200.
Nuts.
And they were basically dying. Yeah, so the legion was disappearing because if you think where Space Marines die, you can't always get to that body to retrieve that gene seed. So so basically they were slowly dying. The legion was disappearing, and they started reproducing the gene seed, but essentially without finding Fulgrim, the legion would die.
Of course, right? Yeah, because okay, they needed him to create more gene seed from
because he was the daddy, so they needed his seed.
Lord. Lord.
It all gets very Emperor's Children. Which I'd never known. Like I've never had any real great interest in Emperor's Children, so I didn't know any of this. So it was quite interesting. Yeah, basically the Legion was dying, but thankfully enough for them. Oh, also the virus attack was of Xenos origin. Yeah, so I don't know who it was, but I would guess it was the Eldar.
Right.
But who knows? Because obviously the Eldar kind of knew what was coming with these guys, didn't they?
Yeah, I suppose so. Actually, yeah. Good point. Yeah.
But I mean, that's just me guessing. I didn't read that anyway. I don't know if there is. I don't even know if they've ever kind of said who it was or what it was. But yeah, basically, it was a Xenos attack. But yeah, Fulgrim, whilst this was all going on, he landed on the planet Chemos, I suppose. Chemos,
yeah.
Which, to be honest, isn't the worst of planets that Traitor Primarchs landed on. It was kind of a grey, drab mining world, slowly regressing. Like it was slowly becoming less output. All the people did was toil away and work. I mean, it's basically Peterborough in 30k, like just a grey, drab, kind of not quite a wasteland, but it's
Amen. Amen.
And young Fulgrim was found by a load of these workers, and he was put to work, and he worked in the factories. I'm trying to remember what the place was called. Kallax was the factory, so they had like fortress factories on the planet. So he ended up in Kallax, and as he grew, obviously he developed, and he became better and better at producing these things in the factories, and essentially he ended up taking over this fortress factory, began creating like better machines for harvesting the minerals. And production output became better so that people didn't have to toil away all the time. And as productivity increased, he started reintroducing kind of arts and crafts and philosophy and
tissue paper, like art making, and
like
stuff.
all the stuff that the people hadn't been able to do because they just basically spent their lives working. And then obviously Big Emps found him, and this is what I was talking about. The 200 Emperor's children stood before him. So when he was introduced to the Emperor's children, every legionnaire held a banner of a company, because they'd been destroyed so badly that literally there was no company. Each individual person represented what would have been a company in another legion. So Lorgar knelt before him, and his words to them were, "You are the Emperor's chosen, his heralds, his warriors, his children, for this is only the beginning." And basically, he told them to kind of shake off their misfortunes. Don't kind of look at the past and just look at the future. So it all kind of sounded very positive, but as we know,
Lends into a hedonistic debauch of affairs afterwards.
And they were officially named the Emperor's Children, although they had that nickname before because of coming from kind of what's the word?
The royalty, I guess, of the
kind of royalty, and essentially, So they kind of had the name Emperor's Children before, but they were now officially called the Emperor's Children. They were allowed to wear the purple, which was the kind of Emperor's color, and the Palatine Aquila was theirs to wear, which again was a massive thing. It's always kind of one of those things because everyone in 40k has an Aquila on them. You just think like, oh, it doesn't mean anything, but it was such a massive thing back then. But obviously with Fulgrim's discovery, they started producing Gene Seed again. I've got notes written here that by this stage, the Ultramarines had already passed 100,000 Legionnaires, and they were still at 200. So they weren't kind of operational. They weren't allowed to go off on their own. So they were teamed up with the Lunar Wolves at the time.
Yeah.
And at this point, Fulgrim and Horus kind of became good friends. And it describes how kind of the Lunar Wolves and the Emperor's Children kind of worked really well together, whereas one was like a blunt instrument that just went in and smashed shit. And the Emperor's Children would use kind of finesse and, like, oh, whilst you're smashing that, we can outflank and stab this thing here. So they ended up working really well together, and basically became Space Marine best friends. To the point that, when the Emperor's Children were able to kind of go off on their own, they made bonds together and they swore kind of loyalty to each other as legions, which I didn't know any of this, to be honest.
I suppose that also paves the way for the later decisions that Fulgrim will make to join Lupercal.
Because they basically sworn kind of brotherhood, basically. So but it was also at this point when the kind of pursuit of perfection started really taking effect on the Legion. So they had always kind of pursued perfection, but it was now getting to the point where it was starting to affect them. So if they didn't do as well as another Legion, they would see it as a personal slight to them. And it started creating kind of mistrust between certain legions. If another legion got honored for something, they would see that as a personal slight against them because they feel like they should have been better than that legion. And you can kind of see the cracks starting to appear. Where they just kind of had this thing that they had to be better and better. The constant pursuit of perfection. And it also kind of started creating, as they became better, because they did perform things better than other people, they also started looking down on other people, which was something that they'd never done before. So you can see these kind of cracks starting to break in. And and the fact that they were constantly pursuing perfection and wouldn't always reach it, you know, like that constant pursuit of perfection is kind of going to affect you after a while. It was also around this time that Fulgrim surprisingly became best buddies with the 10th Legion Primarch Ferrus Manus, and essentially they were best friends. And I think Ferrus had a thing of kind of not the pursuit of perfection, but of removing kind of inadequacies, didn't he? It was almost the same thing, but instead of pursuing perfection, it was removing weakness. So they kind of had similar ideas, just went about it in different ways. And Ferrus and Fulgrim ended up building the perfect weapons. I think it's something like this. They built like the perfect weapons. They forged the perfect weapons for each other and then presented each other with those weapons. So Ferrus made the Fireblade for Fulgrim. And Fulgrim made Forgebreaker for Ferrus.
I think it was a competition, I think, to see who could make the weapon. And I think that after it had been made, I think that both of them were kind of like, your weapon is the greatest weapon. Your weapon is the greatest weapon. And then they exchanged the weapons, I think.
So it was also around this time that the Emperor's children would start doing stupid shit as well. Like they knew they were good, and so they would start kind of doing things in campaigns that would affect campaigns because they kind of wanted to show off, because they wanted to prove their ability. So I can't really remember it all, but I read stories of, you know, they took a world with only 7 Marines just to show that they could do it.
Could do it, right.
And it's kind of like, that's great, but you could have done it a lot quicker if you used the whole Legion. Like everyone else is just sat in space with their thumbs up. Like, you know, it was just kind of this pride that actually
classic.
So yeah, and then it was around this stage that the Emperor's children began the campaign against the Xenos race Delaer. Which would become known as the Cleansing of Delaran. And it was at this time that Fulgrim, well, at the end of this campaign, that Fulgrim found the Silver Blade of Delaer, which we mentioned before, which at the time he just thought was a sexy weapon. But what we now realize was it was basically a demon, wasn't it? It was a demon infused in the sword. And that demon obviously started affecting his thinking and aided in the downfall of the Legion. He also met with Farseer Eldred Uthran, and this is in the Fulgrim book, which I don't think you've read, have you?
So it's in the Fulgrim book. Yeah, it's not in the Primarch book. It's in the.
Okay, yeah. So I remember reading this. Yeah, and basically, Eldred, who's in 40k, basically warns him that Horus is becoming corrupted, and obviously because they're best mates, he calls bullshit and murks like a Wraith Lord and an Avatar of Cain, I think it is. So yeah, Fulgrim just goes berserker on this like god of war and kills it, which is pretty awesome. And then Fulgrim disappears, runs off to Horus to tell him what he'd been told. And Horus is kind of like, well, yeah, do you want to join me? And he's like, all right. So he goes there to kind of confront him, and then ends up being told, yeah, actually, this is like, let's do it. Like, screw the Emperor. And again, like we said before, because they're best mates, they kind of, they did. And they were already, by this stage, on a downward spiral. Fulgrim's kind of slowly being possessed by, I think it is a Tzeentch demon.
I don't know. I think it's a nondescript.
I thought they did say it was not Tzeentch. What's the
Nurgle Khorne or
Slaanesh.
Slaanesh,
yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I have a feeling they did say it was a demon of Slaanesh, but I can't really remember. But yeah.
Because all the legionaries start listening to like some like hard punk music, right, as well, and that
Yeah,
also forces them to go down a rabbit hole of hedonistic.
There's a bit in one of the books that I always remember of. I can't remember what book it is, where two Iron Warriors go over to the Emperor's Children's ship, and they go into what is basically a nightclub with these Emperor's children,
yes.
and they're all just getting fucked up. And then one of the Iron Warriors is like, "This is ridiculous. I'm not doing this," and the other one's like, "Fuck it,
on
when
a
in
crack
Rome."
pipe, isn't he? Yeah.
And just starts toking on his mate's fucking crack pipe. But yeah, I just love the image of these two Iron Warriors just in a nightclub with Emperor's children, like all this hedonistic shit.
It sounds mad, doesn't it? But the Fulgrim book, which is the first one where we're really introduced to the Emperor's children in quite a lot of detail, it's written really well. It's by Graham McNeill, I think, and it's done really well. But you're right, it's kind of like a nightclub, and then they create like an opera house in the flagship, right? And things get a bit crazy in there. So
yeah, it's been so long. I mean, this is one thing researching this stuff, is it's been so long since I read some of these books that I've just forgotten most of it. But yeah, I do find it fascinating. The books, if you haven't read the books, just like go and read them, because they're so well done. You see this kind of slow descent into madness, like even Lucius. Because he's like he's like the sword master, isn't he? But
yeah, I think he's like a company captain, but
and he starts cutting the scars into his head, doesn't he? Every time he kills someone who was worthy of killing, and you see the kind of arrogance, and it goes from, kind of, like I said before, it goes from kind of trying to create perfection to this kind of arrogance, to this descent into what we know the Emperor's children end up being. But to be honest, that's kind of as far as I went with the research.
You've given us a Skolin thesis there, so
you've done a lot more than I have.
That was some of that stuff was really interesting. I hadn't realised how depleted the Legion was.
Some
of I knew there, but I hadn't realised that they were like ambassadors and emissaries and things. But you can, I like how you can see from the very early stages of the Emperor's children, and although it wasn't apparent, back then 200 years, before the Great Crusade, that actually as you say, the cracks started to form very very early, and would kind of like herald their downfall, really. But I think we've got colour plates next, is it? We have, yeah, these are great, aren't they?
Awesome, aren't they?
Yeah,
really cool.
I love the deep purple. I know some people do more pinky, but I absolutely love the dark purple with either white or black kind of shoulder pads. It looks so cool.
White looks really really good.
Super cool.
Yeah, the white again, I think.
Yeah, the white. I like that because it's almost like a pearly white, isn't it? It's not a
the bronze and the gold. Yeah, it's really.
It's not a clean white.
No, it's quite I think, and this is why I think, if you look at Kieran's Raptor Imperialis, his Emperor's Children, he's done a mixture of ones that are using purple clears and ones that are just using normal acrylics. But you can see why people would choose purple clears to do their Emperor's Children.
Yeah, definitely. I would if I was to do them,
yeah, I think that, from the artwork, it's awesome.
We've got a couple of novel choices up here as well for people to check out.
So, I was gonna. Are we gonna talk about kind of their style of fighting or something? Or are we gonna leave that?
Do it now. No, we can
go back. Yeah. We can
make it quick though. We've got another 9. Yeah, another.
I'll kind of whiz through this. So basically, I'll read what's written in the Black Books. So for the Emperor's Children in the Black Books, it states they're experts of combined arms warfare, the use of complex maneuver and discursive tactical planning, asymmetrical assault. So kind of everything they did, they planned to perfection.
Yeah.
So before they even launched an assault, they would have planned it to perfection, and they would plan everything. They'd plan the equipment, they'd have planned like the reserves. If they had like Imperial Army or militia, they would plan what they were going to do.
There's some great moments in Fulgrim where they, before a campaign started, they would have a victory banquet because it was just assumed that they would win that campaign. So there was always a victory banquet before they started the campaign.
I kind of like that arrogance.
Yeah,
but it can also be your downfall, can't it? Yeah. And this is kind of one of the things that's said in the Black Books is the trouble with this planning was if something went wrong, then they'd almost be on the back foot because they weren't,
they can
because it's the classic saying, isn't it? A plan doesn't last with the first contact. The plan's as good until you first make contact with the enemy. So that would put them almost on the back foot. Like they've planned for this, I don't know, militia army to turn up, but then that army never turns up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh shit, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And yeah, it just talks about they held of all the things they held in high regard, speed was one of the things. And I kind of never knew this. You always think of like White Scars with speed, don't you? But it wasn't just speed of maneuver, it was speed of fighting. So they preferred kind of fighting fast rather than hitting someone the hardest.
Yeah.
Which I quite like, and that brings in the kind of the dueling swords and stuff like that. So,
I think and also within the rules that we've seen that we'll talk about a little bit later. We've seen that with the initiative buffs that they get in close combat as well.
And this also showed the Legion had like a large number of jump pack assault troops, like land speeders and jet bikes, and they particularly liked the jet bikes because they thought it was quite what's the word? Like almost thematic, like the knights charging in on their horses. So that they thought jet bikes looked sexy because they're sleek and you know what I mean. Like
they look like big old willies as well.
So they kind of like that. And then with their kind of elite units, you had the Sun Killers, which were kind of heavy weapon squads. Equipped with las cannons, and again it's that kind of pursuit of perfection. Like it's like you're a las cannon gunner, but you're going to be the best las cannon gunner in the fucking galaxy. Most other people would be like, I've got to carry this big everything and I'm probably going to get shot first, but they were like, we're going to be the best at this. The Phoenix Guard, which were ceremonial kind of honor guard, and the Palatine Blades. And I didn't realize this about the Palatine Blades. I thought the Palatine Blades were like a formed unit. But basically, before a campaign, they'd get all the best swordsmen and bring them together, and they would be the Palatine Blades.
Right. Okay.
So it wasn't like a thing. They just grabbed like the best swordsmen who they had with them at the time. And it was like, you are now the Palatine Blades, which I quite like the idea of. And I wrote a little bit about as well, like in the pursuit of perfection, and even from early stages, they had like a large apothecarian, and the apothecaries were kind of going against, well, it's basically heresy from the start. They were kind of adapting things to gene seed, and they started performing operations on select Marines, which was heresy because it went against what the Emperor had created. The Emperor created the perfect weapon, and they were now trying to create an even better weapon from what the Emperor had created.
We see that quite a lot with in the first 3 books, particularly with I think it's the Galaxy Burn or the Ben Counter one, which is number 3, which is that. And if you're coming from 40k to 30k, Fabius Barber plays quite a pivotal role within the Emperor's Children Legion. And does a lot of tampering with the gene seed, and he tampers with Lord Commander Eidolon and other people within the Legion as well. So he makes a cameo appearance, doesn't he? 10,000 years before his time in the 40k universe.
Yeah. And I mean that brings me on to kind of the weapons of the Legion, like the Sonic Shriekers, like they put into Eidolon. So it was basically Xenos technology that they were shoving down the throat of Eidolon.
Literally,
but yeah, it was a Xenos weapon. So again, it's kind of, I mean, that's heresy before the heresy had even.
And it's just another thing which adds to that toxic mix that meant they were led to the Horus Heresy, I guess, right?
And they had the Phoenix Power Spear, which is based on the Legio Custodes Guardian Spear, which I didn't realize. It's like an inferior version. But I quite like the idea of that. It's kind of like, well, we're the honor guard of the Emperor, because in the beginning they would be the honor guard for the Emperor.
Yeah.
So we're going to look like the Golden Boys. I quite like that. Chernobyl sabers were quite popular in the Legion, and that comes back to the kind of speed of fighting rather than the kind of brute strength. And the Cacophony, which was again kind of Imperial-based weapons with Xenos technology that basically created a psychic sound shock thing. But again, it was kind of heresy from the start, because they were messing around with Xenos technology and warp-infused technology. So yeah, it was all quite interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I've got. You'll be glad to.
Yeah, definitely, it's a Legion to pick if you, and I suppose this is the point of this like show, isn't it? It's a Legion to pick if you are into sort of calculating forward planning, but also you like a little bit of BDSM and debauchery in your life as well. So they're kind of those two very disparate kind of things come together within a Legion. I think that then that is the Legion for you.
If you like speed as in the movement and speed as in the narcotic, it is probably the Legion for you.
It is the Legion for you, right? Yeah.
And yeah, some Legion books. I do advise reading more, because my mental ramblings probably don't paint a full picture, but Horus Heresy Book 1, Betrayal. These were one of the first Legions ever shown. Galaxy in Flames, Book 3 of the Horus Heresy series. Fulgrim, which was Book 5 of the Horus Heresy series. And Angel Exterminators, which isn't really about them, but they are there, aren't they?
They're in quite a lot. I mean, it's 50% about them, I think. I mean, it's largely based around the Iron Warriors, but
it's mainly the Iron Warriors, but I think the Emperor's Children convinced them to attack the world.
Because by this sort of point, and quite early on, what they were trying to do was give sort of a novel to each Legion, or a couple of novels to each Legion. And Fulgrim was the novel for the Emperor's Children, and Angel Exterminators was the novel for the Iron Warriors.
Yeah, like you say, they do appear heavily. And then Fulgrim, the Palatine Phoenix, which is the picture on the left, which I haven't read.
I haven't read that one. I'm sure it's good. I have no doubt. Josh Reynolds is quite good.
You'll be glad to hear that's all I have on.
But that is just a confirmation. That is the third Legion. The third Legion, right?
No comment. No comment. Yeah.
Perfect. Right. What's the next one? What's up?
Next up. It's you again, Lee. Sorry.
Oh, gee. Oh, here we go. Another half an hour, is it? Come on then.
I'll speed up on this one. I'll get faster and faster as we go along. By the end, I'll be like word bearers cunts next one.
So mine's going to be very short. Don't worry. Compared to yours, Lee, you've put me to shame, man. Oh dear. Yeah.
So the Fourth Legion. Yeah, he's got it right. The Fourth Legion, the Iron Warriors, and I have to say, this is probably up there as one of my favorite legions. I just love the fact that they're grumpy fucking dickheads. Like, I really like the fact. So yeah, Iron Warriors, again, formed during the final stages of the Unification Wars. And these basically had the complete opposite problem of the Emperor's Children, in that their gene seed was like fantastic. It was top tier. And because the trouble with recruits for Marines is you would recruit people and then their body would reject the gene seed, whereas with the Iron Warriors gene seed there was like a high uptake. So from the very start their legion gained in size like quickly, so they were soon operational, and essentially within a few years were catching up with the First Legion in terms of size. And it was quite interesting as well, because they were basically thrown straight into it, and their kind of tactics from the very start were just kind of artillery supported by mass infantry, and if you have a problem, just throw more infantry at it, and then just throw a few more people at it, and just keep throwing people into it. And because of the rapid uptake on the gene seed, they could constantly keep producing new recruits.
Right.
Obviously, they came from Terra, from old Albia, I think it is, and I think I read somewhere once that was basically the British Isles.
That is Albia is British Isles.
Yeah. So yeah, these I think 30,000 years in the future, it's probably not the British Isles. It's kind of the British Isles.
There's no water on Terra, is there? So like,
yeah.
So
and surrounding area, yeah, it's probably like, yeah. But anyways, yeah. And there was an interesting story about that, actually. I'll just quickly go on. Like, so it was the 10th Legion, the 4th Legion, and I think it was the 8th Legion that all came from old Albia. And actually, they put up such a good fight against the Emperor that instead of trying to kill them all, the Emperor went in and basically did what he did with Mars,
right,
and basically convinced them to join him through diplomacy, because he knew that it was going to take so many casualties killing these that it would affect his ability to continue fighting the unification wars.
right.
And they had kind of like proto dreadnoughts and all sorts of shit. Like, yeah, so it's quite cool when you can kind of see the Iron Warriors and the 10th Legion coming from similar backgrounds.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, basically they kind of adhered to the original kind of Legion rules, the ways of fighting. And because their gene seed was so good and they were taking such heavy casualties, they kind of lost all cultural links as they went out into the kind of Great Crusades. They would basically take recruits from anywhere just to keep feeding the Legion, and so they didn't have this kind of cultural thing like like the Space Wolves and the Blood Angels, and they all start developing their own little kind of ways of operating. The Iron Warriors didn't have that, and they just kept doing the same thing. And this was fine, but they just didn't change anything. And obviously, as you started going out into the big bad world, you started fighting bigger and badder enemy.
Right. So they didn't adapt.
They literally never adapted.
Right.
So if they had a problem, they would literally just keep throwing guys at it.
Right. Okay.
And there's an incident called the Siege of in Caladian, which was a Forge world in Caladian. And during this campaign, in a single engagement, the 4th Legion, because they refused to withdraw, lost 29,000 legionnaire killed in a single battle. And some people talk about this incident and they say that was the entire casualties over the entire campaign.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. That was literally, it's in the black books, that is literally a single battle. They lost 29,000 dudes. And it was kind of at this point that like the higher ups were like, what the fuck are these idiots doing? But whilst all this was going on as well, like the Iron Warriors, they kind of never refused a job. So they were getting sent off to go and do kind of guard duty. You know, if they had a world that you couldn't just trust to a militia, they'd send the Iron Warriors. And the Iron Warriors would kind of always say yes. But they kind of started begrudging these kind of shit jobs. And they because they were kind of siege experts as well, they kept kind of getting drawn into these siege campaigns where they take massive casualties, and they were always able to replace these casualties. But it started building this kind of bitter resentment in the Legion, and although they took pride in it, like after a while, it's going to affect your psyche that basically you're just going to keep dying and all your mates are dying around you. And then as soon as you finish that, like you're on to the next campaign, and then again, all your mates are dying. It really started creating a kind of psyche within the Legion. But yeah, the siege of in Caladian was basically they won it, but they took such heavy casualties that it didn't make them combat ineffective, but basically their entire, so they were the 8th Expeditionary Fleet. That entire fleet was basically non-effective after that because they'd taken such heavy casualties.
Right.
But
I think I know what's about to happen next. I think that is Perturabo about to turn. I just start kicking some dick, I think, isn't he?
They didn't have the problem with the Emperor's Children, so they took these massive casualties.
Yeah.
And it actually, over time, they were reduced to one of the smallest legions during the Great Crusade,
Right.
but purely because they were constantly getting thrown into these grinding campaigns.
Yeah. And
because they never adapted their way of fighting, they just kept throwing people at it. But you are correct. Perturabo, their Primarch, wound up on the planet of Olympia, which was a kind of rugged mountainous world, and stone was one of the main kind of resources. He was found by the
like the Tyrant of Olympia or something.
Yeah, the Tyrant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, he became his son. He was renowned as being like a stroppy, moody, quiet child, but he took over the armies, and that's where he kind of learnt his siegecraft, because it was all based on kind of stone fortresses and cities within stone fortresses. And yeah, essentially, he kind of became the Hammer of Olympia. And yeah, was just known as a kind of ruthless, bloody general, basically, that took no shit but got stuff done. And then at this time, he was reunited with the 4th Legion.
Yeah.
And I think he spent some time with the Emperor as well, I think.
I think they all do.
Yeah.
In the Emperor's kindergarten when they're still.
Yeah. Well, Mortarion doesn't. He's the only one I think that doesn't. But yeah, and basically, one of the things that was noted about him was just his ability to just remember everything, and his technological ability. He was like just one of the Primarchs above all the others that could just remember fucking everything and just take in huge amounts of information. And so he was given the 4th Legion, and in classic Perturabo style, he went through all their kind of battle data, all their kind of achievements, and they were found wanting. And his first act as Primarch of the Legion was decimation. They held a lottery, and whoever lost, 1 out of 10, were beaten to death by their mates, basically.
Yeah. So this is a Roman military thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where we get like deck is obviously 10, and every 10th man dies. But I think just to add in to that is that, like similar to the Ultramarines, I think that the Iron Warriors take quite a lot of their aesthetic, but also their culture from like Roman like culture, right? So the
Roman and Greek,
have taken quite a lot from the kind of that culture, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, well, I say Greek because the Romans basically stole all the Greek
stuff from the Greeks,
everything basically. But yeah, you're exactly right. The Roman army, if a unit performed poorly, they'd be decimated, and 1 in 10 would be killed, which is exactly what Perturabo did. And it kind of showed the Legion that this is what you're going to get. If you don't perform, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And it was frowned upon. I know Gulliman kind of started like screaming at the Emperor, and the Emperor was basically like, and the Emperor was basically like, I don't give a fuck. It's his Legion, as long as he makes them operational. Because that's the Emperor. The Emperor, basically, isn't he?
Yeah.
And that's what he did basically. Yeah, he took the Legion in.
We can sort them out. Sort them out. Right?
And I like one of the quotes from the Black Books is the Iron Warriors became the battering ram of the Great Crusade.
Yeah.
Because they basically just, they just started smashing shit. They just,
But they still have that problem of being, and this is a running theme throughout the novels, but also within Perturabo as well, which is that they again are put into meat grinding campaigns that build up so much resentment, which is part of the reason why that leads to Perturabo's downfall and his legion's downfall.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you see it in the novels as well of their kind of the bitterness starts to kind of come in. They kind of go from taking pride in being these kind of, you know, these people that will just keep walking into anything, to the point that they just kind of become bitter and angry at it. They still take pride in the fact, and they look down on other legions because they think other legions are weak because, you know, they don't just walk towards the big guns that are blowing them all up. But with these constant grinding kind of siege warfares, and this is one thing I find interesting, you never really get it in the rules of the game, is basically what would happen is they use kind of cold mathematical kind of logic before a battle. And so like they'll use like massive artillery barrages, but these are like, you know, like planned to like pinpoint accuracy to hit the enemy at the perfect place to break the enemy, so that then the legionnaires can go in. But then once they'd got in, they basically became berserkers. Like the whole kind of pressure of the siege kind of was let loose, and they just went into absolute like madmen, almost world eater levels. Of just murdering shit. And I'd love if they do a rite of war where they get rage and like the enemies.
I think you see that with in the Angel Exterminatus book. So with the character of say Forex, who is part.
You see it in the books, but not in the rules.
But in I think it's Kroger.
Kroger.
Like the infantryman who gets raised to become one of the trident, and he's just super bloodthirsty, isn't he?
Yeah. And I love that because it's so true. Like if you read anything from kind of like Middle Ages, Dark Ages of like, you know, even like Napoleonic Wars, once they'd broken a fortress or a castle.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They just murdered everyone. And that's exactly what
that's probably been the same for war for however long wars have been going on.
But I kind of love that idea of just this cold kind of calculating, methodical kind of process. And then it's like, fuck, we're in, boys, murder everyone. And then with their fighting style, like we said before, I'll read it. What it says on the screen is siege warfare, coordinated mass theatre warfare, armored assault, planetary decimation, attrition, retribution, and counterinsurgency campaigns. And there's one thing we haven't really mentioned is that they had some of the largest pools of armored vehicles. Like they were renowned for mass armored fighting, but unlike kind of like the Iron Hands and the Mechanicum, unless it was a special bit of equipment, they didn't really give a fuck about it. So they'd land like rhinos and predators on planets and just leave them there. Because they'd just be like, well, fuck it, we'll just build some more. And obviously like the Mechanicum are like screeching in binary at this. But they just didn't give a fuck. To them, it's just a bit of equipment, and that's their kind of methodical. It's more hassle trying to retrieve it than it is to just leave it, which again I quite like.
That's cool. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. They're quite a, like, on the surface, I've always thought that Iron Warriors are quite a boring legion, you know, based around siege fighting. But there's an awful lot of layers to them, and certainly within the novels they have. The lodge is the wrong word to describe it. In fact, they shun the lodges, but they have sort of I guess like a group of architects across the legion.
Brethren of the Iron Warriors.
That's it, right? And they meet together and they simulate battles. And there's a very cool one where Perturabo plays out the Siege of Terror with Kroger, I think, completely destroys him. And I think that the Angel Exterminatus book in particular, I think we'll come to it in a bit, really adds flesh to a legion that I think can appear quite boring, but actually once you dig a little deeper, it's actually quite an interesting, tortured legion. You know, it's really interesting
like
stuff.
there's a lot of kind of backstabbing and people trying to gain favor of Perturabo and kind of scared of Perturabo,
and quite like Roman politics in that way, you know, senators going against each other, kind of become consuls and things like that.
But yeah, the Iron Warriors kind of unsurprisingly, they had large numbers of tactical dreadnought armor. They used large numbers of armored vehicles, artillery. They put tactile emphasis on vehicles such as Land Raiders, Typhon, Stormblade, Mastodon. They had the Dominators, which was a corps of veterans, and I love this. It's a corps of veterans who survived a score of bloody and desperate sieges to receive the name and were spread across grand battalions.
Right.
So basically, if you survived a couple of fights, you were then a veteran, because usually everyone died by then. Most Imperial Guard levels of kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They had the Stor Bezashuk.
Yeah, the Stor Bezak.
Yeah. Which is a specialized unit of deadly siege weapons. And these guys had weapons that even the Ordo Reductor didn't have.
Right, okay.
If you read any of the Siege of Terror books, they're mentioned in there. Basically they're kind of like just these batshit artillery weapons. And they also control the destroyer carders.
All right. Oh, I didn't know. That's great.
No.
Yeah. So all their kind of like phosphex and atomic weapons were controlled by them as well.
Right, okay. Oh, that's cool.
And then you had the more popular ones that people know, the Tyrant Siege Terminators, which were a kind of specialized Terminator unit. And they were most often found in the Stor Bez whatever.
Yeah.
The Iron Havoc support squads, which
who are no more in the new rules.
Are they not?
Yeah, I think they're gone.
Oh, fucking hell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that.
Well, I'm sure there'll be some sort of compendium like PDF.
Oh, I hope so.
From the official rules, I think.
Yeah. Oh, right. And then the awesome Iron Circle Domitar Ferrum class battle automata, which was basically started as Perturabo's personal bodyguard.
Yeah.
Because he didn't trust his own guys. So he created some automata to guard him. And then they started becoming spread out across the Legion. And again, it comes into this whole kind of not trusting people. Is then the Iron Warriors believed that he was using the Domitar as kind of a means of spying on the Legion. So there's all these elements of kind of not trusting. And like you say, the books put a lot of character, a bit like the World Eaters. The books put a lot of character into a Legion that beforehand was just a bit boring.
Yeah.
And then with their weapons of choice, I kind of didn't really have a lot, because they're one of them legions that kind of just use everything and anything.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
They're not special. They don't have particularly special close combat. The only thing in the game is the shrapnel bolts, like the heavy bolters that cause pinning.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, that's kind of it, really.
Awesome. Should we have a look at the color plates and see?
Yeah, absolutely.
See what's one of those? Yeah, I suspect that the Iron Warriors is probably a popular legion for people who maybe feel not that confident with painting, and I think that because they're relatively quite simple, but you can do some really awesome stuff with the metallic.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, I think they're one of them legions that you can make it look good without putting effort in, or without putting a lot of effort in.
Yeah.
But you can make it look fucking awesome as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. They're great.
I love the hazard stripes.
Yeah.
Like,
good. Yeah,
awesome.
Stripes, really simple scheme, but on a tabletop.
Yeah, it's striking. Yeah, definitely.
It's awesome.
And then we'll novels at the end.
Yeah. So the Angel Exterminatus book I really rate, and I think one of the best moments is, and speaking about the Third Legion, is where Perturabo smashes, fucking curb stomps. Fulgrim into a toy warhound, I think, right? And
that scene's brilliant. Yeah,
he has a model Titan, doesn't he? Warhound
Titan. It's really worth to find out more about the Iron Warriors. Definitely, Angel Exterminatus is the one to start with, and I think if you want to find more about and mechanized warfarers for you, I think looking at any of the 3 Talon books,
Yes.
I think would probably be a good
Yeah.
shout as well if you're looking to get into
Yeah,
that.
definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Who's next?
Cool.
Not me.
That'll be me.
On to you, Paul.
Right, next up we have the Night Lords. So it's my turn, and Lee. Yeah, I haven't done as much research and as much homework as you. The story of my life, really. I think, you know.
What we're hoping is that if you're just interested in a particular legion, you'll just fast forward to that one, right? And then
that's
what's coming for it. So.
So anyone who fast forwards to this will be disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, crushing. It'd be crushing disappointment. Okay, cool. So the Night Lords, the murderers of the heresy. So Conrad Kurz is the governor. He's the Primarch. Was ended up on the night world Nostromo, which is no sunlight, grew up in darkness, a metropolis, industrial planet, full of corruption, crime, run by scheming gangs going around killing each other, fighting for territory and jostling for position, this, that, and the other. And Kurz was basically a superhuman version of Batman.
Yeah, it basically was. Right?
Basically was Batman, but turned it up to sort of 15. You know, he was sort of like taking out all the wrongdoers, you know, flaying people and leaving body parts all around the city and stuff like that to sort of warn as a warning to all the others for their wrongdoers. So Night Lords made up of gang members from the Nostromo inducted into the Legion, and also I think if I get this right, because I did write it down, I unfortunately deleted it. I think they're called the Children of the Night, and they're of terror, and they were the children that were born from the prisoners that were kept underground in the underground prisons of terror, which I thought was pretty cool.
The original unification, kind of when they were recruiting for the Legion, came from Old Albia, and like you say, they took them from basically the children of prisoners. So these children grew up in kind of underground prisons. Yeah. So they literally grew up around murderers and rapists and just like the worst of people. Yeah. And that was the Legion. I mean, what could go wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll see, you know, growing up in darkness and stuff. So these guys are kind of all about the sneaky tactics, and sort of overwhelming their opponents, you know, overwhelming in numbers. And all about the unfair fight, really, and just and wearing their dead as trophies afterwards. So that's kind of.
They're quite a legion. I found with lots of their fluff. They're a legion in terms of their philosophy. And one of the things that they wrestle constantly with is this idea that, and Kurz, when he's on Nostromo, when he's a young boy, sort of, you know, goes around killing from lords to, you know, to rapists, to criminals. Yeah. And he sort of enforces an order on Nostromo through terror and through fear, with the intention that essentially that everything is peaceful. I guess that there is peace and people need not worry because they're so scared to have a foot out of line. And it's interesting, this constant dilemma that Conrad Kurz has, which is that he wants sort of like law and order, but he will use murderers and rapists and terrible people in order to bring that to fruition. And the constant struggle and this sort of madness that kind of ensues through that conflict, which those two things can't really ever be resolved. And I think that one of the themes throughout the books, but particularly the short stories, is that idea, which is that how do you restore, or how do you have law and order within a society when those people are kind of setting about putting in that law and order are the worst people in society. And I think that's a really interesting theme that makes it, sort of Conrad Kurz's story quite a tragic one, I think.
It's kind of put in the stories as well, isn't it? That he basically hates his legion.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
He knows they're dickheads. He knows they're the worst scum.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, well, what do you expect me to do with this? Like, my legion is just made up of murderers. Like, they're all backstabbing killers. Like, you know, they're not the Ultramarines. They never will be, because this is what you've recruited.
Yeah.
for me, this is what I've been given. So yeah, I really find the Night Lords quite interesting, just because you kind of, you read some of these stories and you see things that happen and you think, well, I can kind of see why they went bad, but you know, it could have changed here and here. And then you look at the Night Lords and you just think, like, Emperor, what were you thinking? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It was never going to work out well, was it? You've basically taken the worst people in the world and you've made them fucking superhuman. Like,
yeah.
I mean, their tactics, there's stories of, like, to bring a world into compliance, they would, like, take all the children and just start, like, skinning the children on, like, they transmit the flay pits across the planet, and they just start skinning children. I mean, it's like,
it's hardcore. And I think that I think the other big thing about the Night Lords is that there was a point where sort of like the Council of Terror eventually kind of was like, we need to rein in Comrade Kerr. So in the Dark Tower, I think the Lightning Tower and the other short audio books, Kerr's was sanctioned by Rogel Dawn, but Kerr's and Rogel Dawn essentially sort of, Kerr's takes out Rogel Dawn, sort of like leaves him bleeding on, you know, and eventually kind of like runs away. And I think that had the heresy not happened, I think there would have been some sort of sanction in place for the Night Lords of like sort of prospering levels of kind of sanction. But I think that the heresy just happened just in time that he was able to join Horus and kind of get away from it as well. Is it worth talking about Thramas in any way, shape, or form during the heresy at all? Do you guys know?
Yes. Yeah. So you're gonna have to Thramas. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So the Night Lords were one of the legions that betrayed at the drop site massacre on Isfahan 5. They betrayed the three sort of initial attacking legions, but the Night Lords, unlike sort of the other legions, were tasked specifically with like a sector, like a system, which was the Thramas Crusade, and essentially they tied up the Dark Angels for 2 years, maybe even 4 years. Actually, it was a long crusade. Like it was really, really long. They tied up the Dark Angels for years and years and years, which meant that they couldn't get involved with the kind of like the wider heresy. And you know, the Dark Angels, the ultimate kind of like killers. If they'd been let loose, you know, they could have done some terrible damage. But the Night Lords sort of tied them up there. But they eventually lose, don't they? And they essentially get sort of outfoxed, outplayed by the Dark Angels. And then the story throughout the heresy is really that of Comrade Kerr's just doing his own thing, and his legion kind of going into gangs and rival gangs and rival companies,
splitting off,
isn't it? They're definitely, I think, if you're choosing a legion, they are a legion. I mean, if you like terror tactics and overwhelming, but also if you like sort of a haphazard approach to your war bands, then they're definitely a legion for you, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'll quickly flick through some color plates.
Yes, this is
nice. So there you go. So there's the trophies from the dead.
Yeah, and then the
guy's neck and
it's
and
not
that dark midnight blue.
You've done the kind of paint schemes before, haven't you, Paul, on the Night Lords?
Yeah.
How did you find painting them?
Yeah, painting them's great. I just didn't like doing the lightning. I like doing the blue and getting that nice sort of rich blue with some nice purple shadows. But just the lightning was a bit of a killer.
Yeah.
I haven't got the.
You need a really refined brush stroke, I think.
Absolutely. So yeah, quickly.
Lightning in the kind of real world, say, it's not painted on, is it?
It's not
holographic.
No. Yeah, it's holographic.
Yeah, it's almost like a projection kind of thing. Yeah. So in the Legion, there's a few elite squads. They have the Contenka. Is that how you pronounce it? Contica. Terminator Elite squad, which can be taken as a HQ as well. Those guys are pretty tasty. pretty tasty up close. Flamers and Volkite are the order of the day with those guys. There's also the Terror Squads, which are their sort of infiltration teams with the Volkite Chargers. They've also going with drop pods as well. We've also got the Night Raptors, jump packs, and just sort of melee weapons, overwhelming, large numbers in the squads.
One that's come out with the I think the most recent Forge World kind of like PDFs is the Atramentar, which play quite a big role in the fluff as well, which are the first company of the Night Lords, which are the sort of Terminator elite, which are led by Sevatar, Jago Savarian, I think, and he's a really interesting character. In fact, one of probably the best characters within the Heresy, and just an absolute badass, isn't he? Sevatar, he's a really, really cool character that Aaron Dembski-Belden kind of fleshed out in Prince of Crows, and I think that you're going to look to do Night Lords. That's probably one of the better books to have a look at, really.
Absolutely,
one of my favorite characters from the Heresy.
Yeah. And signature weapons for these guys, chain glaives, I guess, is their signature weapon, which is double-handed, oversized chainsword, basically.
Awesome.
So what else we got? And some heraldry.
I
do like their skulls and their wings, the bat wings.
Great transfer sheet, because they've got like loads of like death, haven't they? They've got the
Reaper,
the Grim Reaper. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's
awesome. There we go. So some novels. We've got Angels of Caliban up there, and the Comrade Curse Primarch novel. I don't think I've read Angels of Caliban.
So that's quite good. So for to know what happened with Comrade Kurz and to know a bit more about Kurz, I think that whole series of kind of like the Unremembered Empire and everything that happens in Imperium Secundus, which is the sort of the rival empire that Rabute kind of sets up during the Heresy to kind of make sure that the Imperium continues. Kurz is kind of on Macrage, kind of unleashing terror. But the other one we mentioned as well is Pharos, if to find out more about the kind of the Legion as a whole and what's happening during the Heresy period. But I think that my go-to probably would be Prince of Crows as a story to look at first if you are interested in the Night Lords Legion, because they just Sevatar is just one of the coolest characters, and there's some nobility about him as well, but there's some practicality about him as well, and I think you see that.
It's kind of the first time you see kind of almost like a comedy element.
Yeah.
Like the things he says, his little one-liners. That
it's proper black comedy. Isn't it? It's not like the slapstick, kind of.
But I think it really fits the Night Lords.
Yes.
Like they're basically criminals, aren't they?
So they're cool,
sarcastic.
Yeah, absolutely,
definitely. Maybe check out Unremembered Empire, because they play Kurz in that quite a lot.
Prominent role in that as well.
Yeah. There's a great scene in that book with Rabute Guilliman's mum, where basically and the Space Wolves death. Is it the Watch Pack?
Yeah, that's right.
They're protecting her from Kurz. That's a great scene. And
that's
really cool. Yeah,
that's good.
He's a great character, isn't he? Like Kurz is a tortured soul and tortured character, and I think that as Primarchs go, he's probably one of the more interesting in terms of his philosophy. But the problem is during the Heresy, he sort of runs around doing his own thing and not really leading a lot of it. But he eventually will join up back with his Legion eventually when they go to Segwalsa, because that's where they kind of hang out before. Spoiler alert, he gets killed by an Imperial assassin much later on during the scout in the later periods. He does. He totally does.
But does he? I like the fact that he knows he's the bad guy. He just knows, and he's like, well, you made me this way, you created me.
What do you expect?
There's a lot of daddy issues though, I think.
Absolutely.
But also you get to see just what an absolute dick kicker he is as well. I mean, at one point in the books he takes on like 3 Primarch.
He's an absolute monster, isn't he?
And just doesn't give a fuck. And still schools them. So
it's cool.
Awesome character.
And then obviously sort of post-Heresy 40k novels, the Night Lords trilogy by ADB.
Yeah,
they're all great. Yeah,
I think they were some of his first books, and I think they really have stood the test of time, those books. But I think actually, if you were to look into Start Night Lords, those are probably the best books to start with, and then start dipping, because I think there's quite a lot of crossover with the heresy stuff, and the characters from that are sort of legions of the legionaries of the Long War, so they know a lot about what happened in Horus Heresy and stuff. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, so go check those out. Cool. Ready to move on?
Indeed.
Okay, right, so what we got next? Ask me again. Okay. So the World Eaters, the Berserkers.
Yeah.
The Berserkers of the Heresy. Okay, cool. Right, so let's start with a little bit about Angron. Okay, so Angron ended up on, now if I get this right, and we're going to get this right, Nuceria?
That's correct, yeah.
Nuceria, okay, cool. And was basically taken in as a child by a slaver, and then became a gladiator. And the hierarchy on the planet basically ran these gladiatorial death matches to sort of entertain the people in the lower stages of society, I should say. And eventually he was implanted with a device called the Butcher's Nails, which basically turns him up to 20, makes him super aggressive, super aggy, super strong. And that similar device was then implanted into the Legion a little bit later on into the timeline. And if you want to play a Legion that are all about running headlong into the enemy with no sort of reason for caution or anything like that, I think these are the guys for you. Super pissed with the Emperor. There was a rebellion happening on Nuceria. There was an uprising by Angron and a load of the other gladiatorial slaves. And the Emperor came along and basically picked him up and put him on his dropship. Put him on his starship in orbit. And and Angron never let it go, and was super pissed at Big E.
It's going forward. One of the pivotal points where the Emperor's just a dick, isn't it? It's just like, you could have handled that in so many different ways, but actually you handled it by just getting Angron out of there, saving his life, and letting his best mates, who he's just fought with for the last however many years, all die to a person. And it's just like, like, you could have just sent some guys down there and helped him. Like, why pull him out of there and just let everyone die? Like, it's just one of those moments where
and that becomes a running theme, and again, one of the biggest seed for Angron to join Lupercal, which is that the Angron is constantly plagued by the fact that he can get no peace because of the Butcher's Nails, but also he's plagued by the fact that he feels that he should have died on Nuceria along with the other gladiators who rebelled against the kind of against the prince or the lord of Nuceria, and that is one of his searing resentments. And actually, if you think about and when you hear Angron within the novels talk about who his kind of true legion is, it's always the gladiators that he fought with, and that actually he has no real affinity with his sons. There are moments, jovial moments between them, and there are moments where there is respect, but really Angron, and he says this within the novels, died on Nuceria, and that I think is one of the most, in terms of characters, like Kurz, he's a character who is plagued by his past, and that plays out throughout the Legion, throughout the sort of the timeline of the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's go to some plates. Cool.
The other character to mention from, and if you're again looking at this from a 40k perspective, is Khan. So Khan the Betrayer in 40k mythology. Khan, the Eighth Captain, plays a big pivotal role within the 12th Legion. He's a company captain, but he's equerry to the Primarch, so he's always getting Angron moaning at him about shit. But the way that he's portrayed is somebody who actually, while Angron is sort of murdering people on a planet, it's Khan who keeps the Legion together.
Absolutely.
And that has more sort of strength of will over the Butcher's nails that's implanted into him than many others. Although what you see is an acceleration when the heresy starts of him sort of falling to the Butcher's nails and falling to Khorne as well. But again, like and similar sort of like character, because they're written by the same author, which is that you get this very dark black humor with Khan. And I think it's really fitting because they're quite complex characters, and I think that Aaron Dempsey Bowden did a great job of fleshing them out. And where again, like Iron Warriors, quite a boring Legion, they're just aggressive berserkers. Actually, there's again quite a tragic sort of storyline that goes along with it, but they are enormously interesting. I mean, the fact that they're taken, there's no home world for they don't take recruits from New Syria, they take recruits from everywhere that they can just possibly find, and there's an example of that is that they have this bastardized language, which is, I think, is like Nagari or something, where they have to kind of create this language that everybody can speak because everybody's from different worlds. So really, really, really interesting Legion.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go along one more.
Oh yeah, does anyone want to talk about the red here?
So the red is later on in the heresy, if I'm not mistaken, and that's caked on blood rather than paint, isn't it? Just the point where they've just let it all stick to the armor. I'm not interested in servicing their armor or polishing it, cleaning it, or whatever. I like that red.
If you look at the color plates, you can see the kind of blue underneath the red. So it's the kind of old Legion slowly being overtaken by what it's becoming. Because with the Butcher's nails, was it like it was alien technology, wasn't it? I think
I don't know if it was alien technology, but it was. I think it was like Dark Age.
Yeah, it was Dark Age.
Yeah, Dark Age. Yeah. Because there is a scene where the Emperor actually takes Angron back to Terra, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's right. And they
try to remove the Butcher's nails.
They
basically like, he will die if we take them out.
Yeah.
But then the Legion obviously started getting the Butcher's nails because they wanted, because they kind of didn't get on with Daddy. They thought, well, if we go batshit like him, we might have more in common. And all that happened is they all just went batshit.
They went, but yeah.
And then the kind of adding to that as well. So the Butcher's nails, it like the idea of the Butcher's nails is that they can't find peace unless it's in the sort of the onslaught of battle. And the West Way and Angron has kind of like more advanced, or I suppose more archaic versions of the Butcher's nails, but he describes when he can only sleep or find rest or dream when he's in battle, and that's the only piece that he can find, which is why he's constantly revved up for battle in the constant battle frenzy. And I think that as time goes on, the effects of the Butcher's nails sort of becomes they talk about the oldest veterans being the most emotionless, and they only feel emotion when they are in the sort of throes of battle.
And it kind of goes beyond that as well, doesn't it? Like if they're not in battle, they're getting like these piercing headaches.
And
they can't concentrate, and they're struggling to just talk. Towards the end, like Khan's kind of really has to concentrate just to have a conversation.
Grunting.
Because all he wants to do is murder shit. And it's done really well in the books of where Khan will literally like cling on to sanity for as long as he can to try and give orders or get orders. And then eventually he's just like, nah, fuck it. Like the nails are singing and he just goes in, everything goes black.
The other big thing around the World Eaters as well, and what large part of their culture is based around, though, is the fighting pits. So the fighting pits are sort of in the depths of the Conqueror, which is the Gloriana battleship, and where sort of Marines will fight one another, sort of bare-chested with different weaponry. And within the novels, it talks about to what extent that they would fight, to the death or to first blood and things like that. But there's still places of honor within the Legion, and they, or at least up until the kind of like the siege element. But some of the best fighters within the legions as a whole, the 18 legions, are invited into these pits. So Sigismund, for example, would fight. Argyle would fight. Erebus previously has been invited into these pits. But they're places where there is still honor within the Legion. Not that there's not a lot, there's not a lot of honor left. But still honor there.
Talking about the fighting pits, am I right in saying that Khan never gave a shit about the fighting pit?
He couldn't care less because he was always going to win, and I think that's the thing. Like, he's the fastest of any legionary. Yeah. He was always going to win, so he never cared.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, super cool. Moving on to the couple of novels. Is it Angron's Primarch book? I haven't read that, guys. I haven't got around to that one.
No, I've not read it.
No. And then Betrayer, which is another top tier. It's right up there, isn't it?
Anything that Dembski Bowden touches is just pure gold.
I think for me, Betrayer is one of the best books in the series. I just like to give life to, I never cared about the World Eaters until I read this book, and I was just like, oh man, these are.
And then it will make you want to do World Eaters, right? But that Betrayer follows the campaign through Ultramar, the Shadow Crusade.
The Shadow Crusade,
where they're kind of matched up with the Word Bearers, and sort of Lorgar sort of is despairing of Angron, but it sort of has learnt to kind of live with him by this
control
point. Kind of lets him loose on the 500 Worlds of Ultramar, and you kind of see a throwdown between Lorgar and Angron and Guilliman towards the end of the book, and then eventually the decline towards Angron becoming a demon prince, and how that kind of unfolds as well.
Is this where I'm just trying to remember now? It's been such a long time. Is this where Khan and Argyle, the bromance?
Yes.
Happens?
Or
they kind of had that.
They were close, the kind of before, and they have a similar outtake on life. And Argyle never takes it very seriously, fighting pits either. But
they kind of have the conversation, don't they? Of, are we the bad guys? Like
we got skulls on our helmets.
I quite like it because, again, like Carl knows, he basically says, doesn't he? Like, we're the dickheads in this, but we've made our lot. Like this is where we are now. We just have to live with it. And again, I kind of like that. He knows that nothing he does will change. So he's like, fuck it, let's just see where this takes us. Like, Betray is fucking awesome book.
Yeah,
very cool. Very cool.
Awesome. Yeah, a couple of shorts. The Butcher's Nails, again, ADB.
That's a great one. So that's the story of where basically he kills all his captains. Is it, or is that a different short story?
I think it's that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that one. Yeah. And obviously Galaxy in Flames. I know it's quite early in the series, but they featured quite a bit in that.
Yeah. They, in the first. Yeah, they do actually, don't they? Because it's about the Isfan 3. Assault.
Yeah. Another one I've got here is Saturnine as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. So next up, who have we got?
Death Guard.
Right.
I think, Lee, this is for you, has started to make you want to do some Death Guard, isn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So the first thing I need to say is I said about the Iron Warriors being from old Albia. Yeah, that was bullshit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the Death Guard. It's the Death Guard, the 10th Legion, and the Night Lords were from old Albia. So if you listen to the Iron Warriors bit, ignore that first bit. But yeah, I kind of did a bit of research on this. So I used to play Mechanicum that were bonded to Death Guard, and then I had a Death Guard like allied force. And I fucking love Death Guard. Like, I love everything they're about, especially kind of Great Crusade, early Heresy Death Guard, when they haven't gone all like smelly. And it really did make me want to do Death Guard. But the thing with Death Guard is I love painting them, but I got sick of painting them because it took me so long. Because there's so much weathering and the cream armor, and yeah, it's just. But yeah, I had some some serious
moments of weakness.
yeah, I did. Yeah. So the 14th Legion, like I say, originally from Old Albion, not the Iron Warriors, so ignore that. And the thing I found interesting about kind of researching the Death Guard is the main kind of history of the Death Guard, whenever you read anything about them, kind of is Mortarian's kind of story. That's almost like there's not a huge amount. I mean, there is, but compared to other legions, there's not a huge amount of information about the Legion itself. The main stories are kind of the shit show that Mortarian suffered.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, they were kind of formed during the Unification Wars. They were originally called the Dusk Raiders, like a highly original name because they used to attack their enemy at dusk. Like, brilliant. But they always had a kind of, their main role was kind of heavy infantry. And even from when they were first kind of created, it was kind of heavy infantry. And yeah, kind of, they just took pride in kind of being good heavy infantry soldiers. They would always push forward. They weren't really into all the kind of decorations and nonsense that the other legions did, but that became even more so when Mortarion came along.
So the opposite of the Emperor's Children, right? With all their bling.
Yeah, like literally. And this is why I said before, like people always say the Death Guard fell the furthest. And I'm always like, well, I feel like the Emperor's Children did because they started so much, you know, kind of above the Death Guard. The Death Guard never seeked kind of glory or anything. They were just, I mean, there's a bit in the Black Books where Mortarion, it says like Mortarion was the ultimate infantryman, and that to me sums up the Death Guard.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mortarion found himself on Barbarous, which was a feral death world, kind of basically high craggy mountains that were covered in toxic fog. And the human beings that lived on this world kind of lived in the valleys, and they lived in kind of, they were basically feral humans that lived in small villages and compounds, and they basically defend themselves from these alien overlords. So in the high craggy mountains, these kind of alien overlords lived, and they were basically necromancers. They would kill the humans and create armies from the dead using kind of their psychic abilities. So it's basically, whenever you hear about kind of grim dark, like Barbarous was the ultimate fucking grim dark. It was basically feral humans living in fear of being attacked constantly by the undead, because these necromancers would just create these armies, and they like stick human beings together and do all sorts of weird. They weren't just like a dead person coming at you. It was like a fucking monster.
The way that it's, I mean, it's never really said within the Buried Dagger story, but it is suggested that these guys, these sort of the laws of Barbarous, who live high up in their sort of palaces, are sort of dabbling with warp craft. But it's never,
I mean, essentially,
it's never openly said, I think, in that many words. But basically, you have to infer that they're doing shady stuff.
They're basically using psychic powers to
it feels that way,
bring the dead back to life. And Mortarion, lucky Mortarion, found himself on this planet, and the kind of most powerful alien overlord, he was busy murdering an entire village when he heard a child crying, and the child was Mortarion. That he this overlord kind of took as his son, basically, because they can't have children, so it was almost like an heir and a son. So he took Mortarion and started training him in kind of war, but also in kind of like making these horrendous fucking armies of the undead and just all sorts of horrible shit that no child should fucking grow up in. But Mortarion, being a Primarch, kind of just took it all in.
Threw himself head first.
And basically became one of his kind of generals. But he always noticed, although he was bigger than the kind of feral humans, that he had more in common with these humans than he did with anyone else. And there's one thing I like, it's a little kind of side bit, is this overlord that took him in. Because even Mortarion can't go to the highest points of these mountains. Basically, the higher you get, the more toxic it becomes. And so this overlord kind of kept taking him up the hill until he started like dying. And then he found the perfect point where he's basically in this kind of borderline dying like level. And that's where he made a little house for Mortarion. So he's kind of basically a prison cell. But so Mortarion's almost constantly on the verge of like dying to this toxic fog as he's growing up. But yeah, he starts going down and kind of checking out the humans, and Daddy stops him, and he kind of goes, "Fuck you," and goes full in with the humans. But again, with the humans, they think he's a monster because he's 3 times the size of them. So he starts kind of working with them to build up trust. And then eventually one of the minor kind of alien overlords attacks this village, and Mortarion picks up like a scythe and basically murders them all. And these alien overlords, they don't care about the humans, they don't care about the little armies. And he just runs off back into the fog, thinking like he's safe. And obviously Mortarion's like, well, I can go into the fog, I just can't go all the way up to the top. Yeah. So Mortarion follows him and cuts his head off. And apparently like the overlord still has a smirk on his face because he thinks he's getting away. When Mortarion brought this head back to the village. And that's when the village was like, oh shit, like this guy's fucking off the chain. And he basically starts working with these feral humans, and he starts training them. And he does what Primarchs do, basically. He kind of takes charge, builds all these villages together, and they start kind of learning to defend themselves from these alien overlords. And it was kind of said in the books, if the alien overlords weren't so busy fighting with each other, they would have kind of realized that this rebellion was kind of growing into something. But because they were so kind of spent on fighting each other, they weren't really paying much attention to the humans. And then Mortarion basically took the best fighters from the villagers and created what he called his Death Guard, and basically started equipping them with basic kind of iron armor and black powder weapons, and basically trained them to start taking the fight to these overlords. And he kind of fashioned like crude respirators for these humans to wear, and they could start going into the mountains. And as the years went on, the technology got better and they could go further and further up into the mountains. And eventually, the last one left was Mortarion's kind of adopted father, the main overlord. But even Mortarion couldn't get as high as this guy without, like, he would start melting, basically. And around this time, the Emperor turned up. And Mortarion kind of didn't really want to know about him. He wasn't really interested. And kind of just wanted the Emperor to fuck off, basically. But the Emperor basically said to him, if you can kill the Overlord on your own, I will leave you. I will keep going and we'll leave you in peace. If you can't do it and I have to kill him, you will bend the knee to me. So Mortarion agreed, put his little respirator on and started going up the mountain. And basically started melting, and his throat was melting, his lungs were fucking melting, and
he's on altitude sickness, right?
Yeah, literally. And he was on his knees, and the Overlord starts walking down towards him, and kind of out the fog comes this golden dickhead that just fucking murders this alien Overlord. And Mortarion's all pissed off, for one, because he didn't get to kill the guy that basically tortured him his entire childhood, and two, he's been made to look like a dickhead. So that was it. Like, true to his word, he bent the knee to the Emperor. But again, it was that classic kind of moment where he always held that against the Emperor.
Yeah, he had one father figure replaced with another father figure who was not kind to him in any way.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of like it's the broken dagger that they have the main story of it, isn't it? And it's a fucking brilliant story. Like, it is proper grim dark. Like, it's just a fucking horrendous world. But yeah, Mortarion bends the knee to the Emperor, and when he's finally healed, he takes over the Death Guard, the Dusk Raiders, which he renames the Death Guard, and then basically, kind of the Death Guard become more of what we know them to be. So under Mortarion, he had even less time for kind of badges of honor and anything like that. So all the badges that the Dusk Raiders did have started kind of disappearing, and they had this kind of blank armor. And their badges of honor were almost kind of, if you had damage that was to your armor, that was seen as like a badge of honor. And as long as the armor wasn't kind of damaged, that it was no longer effective, they wouldn't repair their armor. And it started building this real kind of sinister feel to the Legion, because basically they're just a bunch of walking rusty wrecks full of broken armor and just didn't really give a fuck, to be honest. And yeah, that's kind of where they are as they head into the Heresy. Mortarion always had a hatred of psychers, which we kind of allude to the Overlords. So one of the things he did was get rid of the librarian within the Legion straight away. And he was also quite pivotal in the, what's it called? The
Council of Nicaea.
Yeah, to get to ban psychers, basically. And little does he know that he's basically a psyker himself.
Yeah, he's described as an addict throughout or rather his behavior is more like an addict, which is that it's sort of later on in the Heresy, or midway through the Heresy, he'll dabble in warpcraft and then, become so intoxicated and sick with it, he'll then leave it for months and months and then dip his toe back in and then take it all in. And so that spiral of an addict kind of takes
It's interesting because if you read the Heresy Black books, like, it kind of mentions in there that he during a battle, he would know everything that's happening in that battle involving his troops, even guys who are 1,000 miles away. And it kind of almost alludes to like a psychic ability to know what's going on, because it's kind of like, well, even if you're a Primarch, how can you know, if you're not in communication with these people, that they're kind of in trouble? So yeah, it's quite interesting, because if you don't know about it, you just read over it and not think anything of it. But when you know about it, you pick up these little things that are like, oh, that's quite interesting. But the Legion's kind of style and tactics, again, from the Black Book, it's heavy infantry assault, attritional warfare, hazard death zone warfare, Xenos eradication, and purgation operations. Because this was another thing, like the Death Guard's ability to survive in toxic environments was above even normal Legionnaires Astartes. So they had they would make a lot of use of kind of destroyer carders, like your Phosphex weapons. They didn't give a shit about it. And it mentions again in the Black Books about kind of to a normal Legionnaire Astartes, these toxins might affect them. They might have to take a knee for a minute, but to a Death Guard, it just didn't affect them. They just kind of had this ability to just not be affected by toxins.
And they have this thing called the cups, right? Which is where they just down in sort of like in drinks in terms of celebration. Like, it was down.
And I quite like it because it gives you a little glimpse of Mortarion. So basically, if I remember correctly, he picks someone from the battle.
That's right.
Who performed like exceptional.
Yeah.
And then he invites them to have a drink with him.
Yeah.
And it's basically some horrendous toxin
poison
that melts your throat.
Yeah.
But to like another Legionnaire, they'd be in bed for like a week. To a Death Guard Legionnaire, they're just kind of like, oh shit.
Lock it back, give me another. Yeah.
But yeah, kind of their main thing was mass kind of infantry, heavy infantry fighting, they used tanks, but it wasn't their main thing. Again, Mortarion would use tanks because he didn't want his troops to get surrounded. But his main thing was the infantryman. He wanted an infantryman that was well equipped, could like survive for forever, and basically just keep fighting. That was their thing, of just keep pushing forward, keep fighting. And they didn't really go in for honors, so they did have special units, but it wasn't a massive thing in the Legion. So they had the Grave Warden Terminators, who were basically like specialized Terminator squads equipped with alchemical weapons. You had the Death Shroud Terminators, who were basically an elite cadre of warriors who were chosen by Mortarion to be bodyguards. And they were usually chosen because they would be the only person who survived. So if their entire squad was murdered and they survived, then Mortarion would be looking at that person because he's kind of got that ability to survive. And one thing I like is in peacetime and in war, at least 2 of their number remained within 49 paces of the Primarch at any one time, which I quite like. And obviously 49 is,
7.
you know, the number 7. And their weapons of choice, like I've kind of mentioned before, was basically anything chemical. So they had chemunitions, which were like alchemical upgrade to their flamers. They had the assault grenade launcher, which fired kind of toxin warheads. They had their power scythes, which were based loosely on Mortarion's power scythe, which is basically a power weapon, like the Grim Reapers. And that's about it, really. Yeah.
Awesome. Should we have a look at the colour plates?
Yeah.
These are hot.
Oh,
Yeah,
that Grave Warden.
Oh yeah, that's good.
If you're looking for a tutorial on these, you'll be able to find one on the Metas Miniatures YouTube.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I love this. So good. Such a cool scheme. Cool weathering.
Yeah.
Like
the cream and green.
Yeah.
The off-white, isn't it? The off-white, creamy, and the green just works so well together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it's awesome.
If you like weathering and you like weathering techniques, like the Death Guard is for you, because it just you know, it just shows up so well against the pale color. It's really good. And I think that I think personally it's a really good Legion if you are if you don't have an airbrush, or you want something done relatively quickly, or you want to, rather than focusing on the modulation of your armor, you want to focus on the weathering because that's what gets you going, then I think this is a really good scheme to do.
Cool. Then we've got the novels, Mortarion Primarch novels, the next one that's due. So we haven't read it.
No, it's coming out soon though. But in both those front covers, you've also got Callus Typhon as well, who is who plays a kind of a pivotal role throughout the like the backstory of the Death Guard, and he's a psyker as well, and that causes an enormous amount of friction between Mortarion and Callus Typhon, and you know, the actions of Typhon lead to some big changes in the Buried Dagger, which is the final book in the Horus Heresy series before the Siege of Terror series. But go on.
I've got a few more books.
Yeah, go for it.
So right at the beginning, Galaxy in Flames and Flight of the Einstein is kind of dealing with stuff that isn't so much the Death Guard, the Legion, but the guys who escaped the Legion to try and warn of the heresy. And
you see because Garrow is the captain of the Einstein, right? So you see the Death Guard from the Terran point of view, which is a different view from the Barbarous, because there's some tension between the Barbar and the Terrans within the Death Guard throughout the story as well.
And And one book that if you are interested in doing Death Guard, I highly recommend reading, and it's a short story by Rob Sanders, and it's Distant Echoes of Old Night. And that is an awesome story about a squad of Death Guard destroyers attacking, I think it's a downed Imperial fists, like aircraft or something. I can't remember. I think it's like a Storm Eagle or something. No, what? It's something bigger than that. I can't remember. But
it's like a cruiser. I think it's like a cruiser. It's a big ship.
And they launched an assault on it. But it's a brilliant book about kind of Death Guard destroyers, and the way it describes kind of Phosphex weapons, and that is definitely worth a read.
Cool, awesome. Right, should we go to the next one?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it. Thousand Suns.
Oh.
Thousand Suns.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So yeah, basically, the Wizards of the Heresy.
The Wizards of the Heresy.
The Wizards of the Heresy.
Next Legion. Next.
Yeah, the guys that sit around.
Egyptian space wizards. Done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One-eyed, horny guy, and that's it. Yeah, horny, armored dude. So the guys that sit around in their libraries in Tactica, in the Great Pyramid of Tactica, on Prospero, which is where Magnus is from. These guys are all about the psychic powers. Studying the Immaterium. They'd been warned. Magnus had been warned by the Emperor. Emperor and Magnus spent a long time together after Magnus was discovered, and spent decades traveling the warp and learning. But the Emperor said, sorry, you need to be careful of this, Magnus. And of course, Magnus being Magnus, a bit of an arrogant prick, didn't really pay much attention to that. And then there was the Council of Nicaea, in which the Emperor then banned the use of psychic units and psychic abilities in the Imperial military forces, basically. And then a little bit later on, Magnus learned of Horus's betrayal and tried to warn the Emperor by projecting himself from Prospero onto Terra and entered via a barrier in the webway that he basically crashed. So he just headbutted his way through, and in turn led a flood of warp entities. I think they were known as at the time, into the Imperial Palace and onto Terra. With that, Big E then had a word with Lehman Russ and said, "Can you bring him back to Terra for a bit? Magnus back to Terra for a bit of a bollocking?" And then Horus gets involved. And tells Lehman Russ to kill Magnus in the hope that when they collide on Prospero, they'll take each other out, and yada yada yada, which led to the fall of Prospero, or the burning of Prospero, or the raising of Prospero, however you want to call it. And Magnus also made a little pact. I don't know if you call it a pact, but he was tricked by Tzeentch, the Chaos God, because the Thousand Suns were suffering with a wonky gene seed, which led to all sorts of mutations and issues. And basically Magnus was super arrogant, couldn't help himself. But did he do anything wrong? That's the big question, isn't it? Yeah, don't know. What do you guys reckon? Yeah, did he do something wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But so
I mean, he basically, when he tried contacting the Emperor, he basically destroyed all the protective ruins on Terra, basically, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And started flooding Emperor's basement with fucking demons.
Because that's when the Siege of Terra really began, wasn't it? I mean, that moment, that's when it started.
Yeah.
And basically, the Custodes had to throw themselves into an unending war against hordes of demons, all because fucking Magnus tried to tell them something that they already knew about. Cheers, dickhead.
Cheers, you giant red bellend. Yeah.
Also, those horns must be really impractical.
Yeah.
Like if you want to look at a screen closely, you can't, can you? Because you're just going to.
And he's got one eye as well, so he's probably
Do you
having to
reckon-
bring things closer to.
Do you reckon his spaceship's just full of holes, like where he's gone to look at something and just
Just constantly knocking over things that are on like workshops and stuff.
like Marines are constantly ducking under him when he turns around.
Is it worth mentioning the cult arcanas, because that plays quite a pivotal role in both the game and the novels?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have to break it. I'm gonna have to break out the rules now, aren't I? Yeah, so there are, I should say, so varying cult arcanas in the Thousand Suns. Talk amongst yourselves while I bring them up for a second.
So the one thing I would say about
Where are they?
Magnus and his kind of other brothers as well. So Magnus is often kind of perceived as quite an arrogant, and even prior to kind of his destruction of the wards on the webway. But he does have some very, very close brothers that he's extremely loyal with. So Lorgar is one of them who's he's extremely loyal with, but also his friendship with Perturabo is extremely strong as well, because they both are really rational kind of people, and as a result of that they form sort of bonds. So when Perturabo is on Terra, so is Magnus, and they spend an awful lot of time kind of studying kind of like ancient Terran philosophy and ancient Terran science.
The thing with Perturabo, and that's what people don't get, is they think he just like concentrated on war, but he would investigate like the arts,
yeah, absolutely,
and politics and everything. So he had a lot that he could talk about with Magnus because he was interested in kind of everything.
Absolutely.
You know, and one thing going back to the Iron Warriors is they mentioned in the Black Books is that Perturabo could have been a skilled kind of diplomat because he had the knowledge and the intelligence. He just chose not to because he was a bit of a prick. And he just thought it was, well, he's just blunt. He just thinks it's bollocks. Rather than trying to police people, he would just tell them, no, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But he, you know, he was one of the more intelligent of the Primarchs, and obviously Primarchs are like super duper fucking intelligent anyways.
The other going back to the thousands, we've done Perturabo now.
Yeah.
One of the other things about the Thousand Suns as well is that you've got this weird relationship between the gene seed and then who they sought as well. So whether the gene seed triggered something latent, some sort of latent psychic ability, or whether the candidates that they chose had some sort of latent psychic abilities with them in the G seed as well. From what I recall, though, it's the gene seed that triggered some sort of latent psychic ability, and so you had just because Magnus is so closely linked with the warp and warcraft, but what you then had within the Legion was a very, very high number of psychers, disproportionate to any other legion. So where you might have, a couple of hundred librarians in a legion of 150,000, you have a legion that's very, very small as a result because of the flesh change and they lost so many legionaries. That's why they call the Thousand Suns. By the time Magnus got there was only 1,000 of them left over, because they were a psychic-based legion, they were very selective in who they chose as well, along with the fact that the gene seed would trigger a psychic ability, I believe. So it always remained a very, very small legion, but a potent one as well, because they were obviously linked with the warp. They had powers beyond any other legion, and because of that, they were still really, really powerful.
And this again leads into another kind of what the fuck were you thinking Emperor moment with the and I can never remember what it's called, the Edict of
Nicaea.
When basically they banned psychers, you basically took away that entire legion's reason.
Yeah.
Like that, their whole reason was to be a psychic force. So as soon as you said you're not allowed to be psychers, it's just kind of like, well, what's the point in having them then? You might as well just get rid of the Legion, because what's the point? It's just, again, another classic Emperor thing of like, what are you doing? Like,
absolutely. Cool.
Absolutely,
do you want to talk us through the cult arcanas?
Yeah, so there's the 5 different cult arcanas, the psychic powers, and the training of different Thousand Sons around the disciplines of the different cult temples. So the different arcanas are the Pavoni, the Raptora, Corvidae, the Pyre, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, the Athanian. Yeah, and each one has a different discipline attached to it. So the Pavori, the Pavoni, Jesus Christ, it's late, isn't it?
Well, it's late, or you're illiterate. I don't know.
I think it's definitely the latter. Yeah, Pavoni. So the discipline's biomancy. So those guys are all about moving fast, a bit quick blood, stuff like that. Raptora, discipline telekinesis. So they can generate kind shields. Corvidae, discipline is divination. Precognitive strike. Good God. I'm not even going to try and say that one. Discipline is telepathy, mental fortitude, and the Pyre discipline is pyromancy, and their effect is Ashen Blow.
And they were essentially kind of, the Thousand Sons were put into different arcanas, right? So I think the books, there are only 5 for gameplay, but I think there are more. I think there's like 7 to 9 of them within the actual story, and each Thousand Son is a member of a particular cult arcana, and within a tactical squad, you might have they wouldn't just have one discipline. So within the novels, they have different ones. So like, you might have a few people within a squad that are good at divination and they can predict, and then you got a few people who can do some kind shields and things like that. And then they're greater than the sum of their parts, basically. So and it talks about the different cults within the novels, which is fleshed out in A Thousand Sons.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at some color plates.
Yes, the crimson of the Thousand Sons. So this is usually
beautiful.
done with clear paints, right? So you've done yours, Paul, with clears, which is
clears.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it with normal acrylics, and they do look quite good. So Nathaniel from Warmaster Painting's done some recently, look really good in acrylics. But I think that the clears are probably quite. I mean, I've done it before, and I found them quite a forgiving color scheme. But in order to use stuff like that, you need an airbrush, unless you use a Metas Miniatures tutorial.
Nice little plug there. Yeah.
You should check out Paul's though, for because he's used his Tamiya clears over silvers, and they look
not too bad. And some nice heraldry.
Yeah, they've got the best, one of the best transfer sheets, I think. And
the transfer sheet's legit. Yeah, it's very good. It's very good.
Yeah, and the black and the gold and the red, I think, looks great as well. Right? You don't see that too often.
No,
but it does look really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of novels to check out. Again, I haven't read Magnus read the Primarch novel.
Neither have I. I've read A Thousand Sons many a time.
Thousand Sons is great. Thousand Sons is fantastic. Yeah, Lee, have you read the Primarch novel, Magnus?
I've not read either of them.
Oh
no.
But I think that if you are new to the Thousand Sons and you're looking at them as a legion, A Thousand Sons was paired with Prospero Burns. There were 2 books that essentially went together in terms of the storyline, the narrative. It happens prior to Isfan 3, so prior to the launch of the Heresy, but I think those books should be read as a pair. You should read them together because they are 2 parts of a whole. Two fantastic books, and I think these ones were some of the New York Times bestsellers, right? I think this put the Horus Heresy series kind of on the sci-fi map.
Yeah, big time.
In terms of those 2 books.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. And then I was going to mention Prospero Burns, and then the other one is the Crimson King, which is sort of later in the series.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, book number 45 or 6 or something like that.
Yeah, it's quite low.
Yeah, it's just worth checking out whether shards are Magnus and all those sorts of things. That's kind of it for me.
Cool.
Thousand Sons. Cool. On to the next. Rob.
Yes. I know the Thousand Sons. Sorry, the Sons of Horus quite well. But it was really interesting listening to Oculus Imperator today, because I think that's a great place if you're looking for more kind of in-depth fluff. It's an awesome place to go. And even then, I was reminded of kind of an awful amount of stuff, especially around the unification period, that I'd kind of forgotten. But what is a kind of like a running theme throughout all the legions is that they're always conveniently the kind of so like, you know, the Thousand Sons were always space wizards, and they just so happen to meet their Primarch, and he's also a space wizard as well. And the same is for the Sons of Horus. So the 16th Legion during the Unification War period were a hyper aggressive legion, and I think it's quite easy to compare them to someone like the World Eaters or the Warhounds at the time. They really did things like precision strikes and spear tip assaults, and they were all about fast action and mobility, and they were all about cutting the head off the head of the snake, so the body died as well. And that's throughout the novels and throughout the novellas as well. That's a running theme, which is that they'll often use particular companies in order to strike down the leaders of forces that they're arrayed against. They were, though, the Sons of Horus called the Lunar Wolves, and they were the Lunar Wolves for after the subjugation of Luna. So Luna was an important because it had the Selenar on, and the Selenar allowed the emperor to unlock the sort of the gene vaults and mass produce the legions. And the 16th Legion were instrumental in taking Luna from the Selenar, and the Selenar were kind of like women who dabbled in genetic crafts, so they kind of like have these really horrible like beasts and men, and but the Marines of the 16th Legion were able to take that down. And the quote from the Selenar to the emperor was, "Call off your wolves." And that's how they got the name the Wolves. And then because they subjugated Luna, then they became the Lunar Wolves after that as well. In terms of, if you look at a map of the kind of the galaxy, Chthoniya is very, very close to Terra. And as the Emperor unified Mechanicum and then the rest of the Sol system, they started moving out on the Great Crusade. And of course, this spread is going to be quite slow initially, but one of the first planets they come across is Chthoniya. And Chthoniya at that time is an industrial world, but it's a world with a sort of a 2 billion population, but it's spread around it is lots of hive cities as well. And underneath these hive cities are these gangs, and Chthoniya is ruled by rival gangs. It doesn't really have a system of government, but it is really rich in minerals, and so you kind of have these worker gangs and these that work within Chthoniya. You don't know much about Horus and the Emperor in terms of how they meet. All you know is that Horus is found on Chthoniya, and it's a fairly brutal place. And so this aggressive 16th Lunar Wolves Legion is then combined with the very aggressive kind of hive gangs of Luna, and again they conveniently mesh quite well together. And what you find over the period of that meshing is that the Legion starts to take on some of the iconography of the Chthoniya. So if we just go to the color plates, Paul, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see here in terms of the mirror coins and the eyes and the engravings and the chthonic glyphs, what you start to see from this moment onwards, when they start to get intake from Chthoniya, is you start to see the Legion start to take on more of a mantle of this sort of more barbaric kind of Legion. And I think that although they are quite barbaric and are known for their kind of like aggressive assaults, what you find is that is matched with kind of a nobility, really. And I think that really stems from Horus Lupercal. So Horus Lupercal and the Emperor fight for decades together, and he's the only son that the Emperor has, and they become very, very close. And I think that throughout this period, the Emperor, because it's the only lost son that he's found, shares a lot of his ambition with Lupercal. And Lupercal has everything in the right measures. You know, he's an excellent logistician, he's an excellent battle commander, he's an excellent warrior, he's an excellent everything. But one of the things that really defines him is his charisma, but also his ambition as well. And eventually that will be why he becomes the War Master. Throughout the 200-year Great Crusade period, of course, you've got the big legions like the Ultramarines, who, of course, have their own kind of 500 worlds, their own empire. Of course, you have the Dark Angels, which is the very first legion that the Emperor created, and they are an enormous legion. But you have the sons of, you have the Lunar Wolves, and the Lunar Wolves are the most sort of glorified legion because they were so aggressive in the way that they prosecuted wars. What happens is that they get victory after victory after victory. So they are seen as, and are, the best warriors in terms of the legions. They are seen as the tip top legion in terms of Space Marines, and much of that is put down to kind of Lupercal himself. But there is no other legion that is able to claim as much glory as the Lunar Wolves, and has taken as many worlds as the Lunar Wolves. What then happens is that towards the end of the Great Crusade, the Emperor goes back to work on the Webway project, and then Horus becomes the War Master. And by this point, all of his lost brothers have been found. What happens, though, is that him becoming War Master is quite divisive amongst his brothers. Some of them, like Rogel Dawn, are fully supportive, and Sanguinis is fully supportive, but there are many others who feel that they should have become War Master as well. So people like the Lion and people like Perturabo, there's sort of like a resentment there that they should have become War Master, because, yeah, again, they're great warriors and commanders and logisticians as well. And, you know, the Lion in particular, he's the Primarch of the First Legion, so he feels that he should. But it goes back again to that ambition. The Emperor sees Lupercal as having more ambition than any others, and I think that ambition is one of the main facets of his undoing. So we meet Lupercal in the novels in Horus Rising, which is the very, very first story, and within that kind of story you find quite a noble legion. And it's kind of told through the eyes of Garvior Loken, who's one of the 10th Company commander. And they have quite an interesting kind of like organization and tactical organization. So the first company, where you would have sort of Terminator-clad kind of veterans and elites, the first company is actually split into two. So you've got the Catchalan Reavers, which is assault squads, and then you've got the Justarian, which are the Terminator-clad squads as well. And the idea behind that is that you have two first companies essentially that are vying for glory, and then that way that will create a level of competitiveness and nobody is complacent, which kind of is why the Justarian and the Catchalan Reavers are so sort of feared amongst all the enemies they fight, but also amongst the Legiones Astartes as well. They're super feared as well. So anyway, but the way that the wars are prosecuted are very much linked to what happened in Chthonian, which is that lots are drawn between company commanders, and then, you know, it's kind of like who gets the long straw really, rather than who gets the short straw, and that will determine how who prosecutes a particular kind of like campaign. But again, everything is linked towards this spear tip assault. So you'll often hear about and often see within the novels, but also read within the Black Books, deep strike assaults and teleportation assaults, and Horus leading at the front, the Justarian, or Abaddon leading the Justarian, or other kind of key characters leading the Catchalan Reavers and things like that. So they're all about kind of that spear tip assault. From there, what you then have is the events of Davin, and Horus is wounded, and then from there it kind of spirals out of all control, and this ambition becomes too much for Lupercal, and then he kind of gets corrupted at that point. But also that corruption, I think, to say that the corruption happens to him, I think it's a two-way process, and I think that lots of his resentment comes from the fact that the Emperor is not discussing his plans of what he's doing on Terra, and then that leads to a lot of resentment within within Lupercal. And I think the important thing is to understand that those two, the Emperor and Lupercal, were so close for so long, and they were the only two conquering the galaxy before the other Primarchs were found, that Horus finds it unexpected that the Emperor isn't sharing his most secret of plans with him. And I think that that creates a lot of resentment that Chaos is able to then kind of feed into and then corrupt Horus. And then the Horus Heresy begins. And then from there, the Isstvan 3 campaign basically kind of destroys a lot of the Sons of Horus now, and they get rid of the people they get rid of the legionaries who would have been loyal to the Emperor. Prior to the Isstvan 3 Legion, though, the Lunar Wolves become the Sons of Horus. And I think the decision is made from Horus's perspective about that after speaking to Sanguinius, who says, look, you need to do this. This is a statement. You are the War Master. These are your sons. We're going to make this statement, and you should make the statement now, because it's suggested to him by the Emperor as well. So that's really the kind of like the kind of like the backstory to the Sons of Horus. But I think that they combine an ability and savagery that you don't necessarily see within the World Eaters, and you don't necessarily see within the Space Wolves as well. But they are described as the most ferocious and feared of all the legions within the book. And part of that, as I say, links back to because they have Horus Lupercal as their their Primarch as well. In terms of the specialist units, obviously we got the Catcher and Reavers, so the Reavers and then the Justarian, obviously really important, and a few characters who crop up within 40k, of course, Abaddon the Spoiler. So he's not Abaddon the Spoiler, it's just Abaddon, first company captain of the Justarian. And then you have other key characters like Malagurst and Garviel Loken, who are recurring characters within the storyline as well. And much of the story is told, especially those initial 3 books, is told through the eyes of Garviel Loken as well. So that makes, and who is a Lunar Wolf and sees himself as a Lunar Wolf as well. So it's interesting seeing his kind of the unfolding of his legion through his eyes. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Everybody happy with that?
Very solid, mate.
Yeah, good.
Cool. And then, I suspect the Sons of Horus will be a popular legion for people, just because lots of the box art and stuff like that we've seen as from GW as it's his heresy, right? It's Horus's heresy, so it's always and will remain a popular legion. So there's some amazing armies out there, and definitely worth checking out Instagram for some inspiration. In terms of novels, though, that I'd suggest, so these two, I think, are really good summaries of kind of how the kind of 2 different sides of the Legion. So Horus Rising is the very first book in the series, so it's definitely worth kind of, you've got to read that one, really. But it gives you a really good in-depth, detailed sort of analysis and study of the Lunar Wolves before they are the Sons of Horus, and those initial key events after Ulanor, before he becomes the War Master. Vengeful Spirit, I think, is an important one to read as well, because it's about, I think it's quite defining in terms of the change that happens to the Sons of Horus in terms of the Primarch himself, because he gets his powers essentially as warp tainted powers at this point. But also you see the Sons of Horus move away from that nobility and more towards that savagery. And you start to see the War Master use other legion as tools within his greater campaign and the greater heresy in a way that perhaps you hadn't seen previously. So, he uses the Death Guard and he uses the Emperor's Children, or specifically Fulgrim as well, as kind of tools to get what he needs. Not necessarily in a bad way, he's still charismatic and brings them on board with him, but it's interesting how he uses people in order to get the things that he needs. Me done.
Cool. Awesome. Good work.
The real heretics of the whole thing.
Oh, geez, of the heresy.
Yeah.
The original Chaos Marines. The Word Bearers. The 17th Legion. This is the Legion I collect. They are the best Legion. That's all you need to know. So it's interesting because, to be fair, I did a bit of research on these today, and I didn't know half of this shit because I kind of got into the word bearers just because I like the color of their armor, and I'd not massively looked into like the history. I'd read all the books, but I read it so long ago that I'd forgotten half of it.
Yeah.
But again, I love the story of the word bearers because it's a complete 180 flip from what they started to what they became. So they're obviously the 17th Legion, formed during the Unification Wars, but they were created with a purpose, and the purpose was to enforce the Imperial truth. So they were the only Legion that actually was given a name from their creation, and that was the Imperial Heralds. And basically they were there, yeah, like I said, to enforce the Imperial truth. Now the Imperial truth was basically what the Emperor enforced across the Imperium.
It's like his ideology, right?
The
Imperium's ideology. Right?
It's basically God didn't exist. It was a belief in kind of science and technology to forward humankind and to kind of get rid of all the previous kind of beliefs that were still around in Terra. So a lot of it was kind of techno-barbarian, dabbling in the warp and chaos gods and this and that. And the Emperor basically knew he had to stop all this bullshit. And that was the job of the 17th Legion. And the way they used to do this is they had people called Imperial Heralds who would go to wherever they were going to conquer, and they'd be dressed in black with a skull helmet, carrying a mace with a winged mace, which sounds very familiar to anyone who plays 40k. And these heralds would basically knock on the door and basically say to them, you know, you need to stop your beliefs. You can come to teach them about the Emperor, and basically give them the choice of you either come to our side or you'll be destroyed. And sometimes these religious whoever would kind of agree and see reason, and you know that the Imperial Heralds were chosen because they were fanatic. The actual heralds who would approach these people were chosen because they were fanatics of the Imperial truth. They were zealots in the belief of the Imperial truth. And invariably they get killed. Like, because you're literally just sending one dude to like a fortress, and it was written in the books that usually they'd kill like 100, 200 people, but they'd usually always be brought down. And then the rest of the Legion would go in and crush whatever, you know, if they refused the Imperial truth, they would just go in and crush them. And they fought with a cold fury, but it wasn't for glory. It was just a duty. It was to see the duty done. And once they'd done this, they would then go in and they would burn any evidence of whatever religious beliefs these people had. So they destroy any temples, they burn any books. And if people still believed in the gods, then they build these big pyres out of all the books they were burning or whatever. And they'd start throwing these people in the fires until they stopped believing in whatever nonsense they believed in and believed in the Imperial truth. Which, you know, couldn't be any further from what they became in the heresy. But the Legion itself throughout these early years didn't really change much. They kind of fought the same tactics. It was mainly kind of mass infantry. Whilst this was going on, Lorgar was found on the world of Colchis. Colchis was dominated by kind of mountains and deserts. I'm currently reading the Primarch book, the Lorgar book. And I'll be honest, it's not the greatest book. It's not kind of how I envisaged the whole thing happening. But basically, Lorgar was found by so on Colchis you have kind of cities in these vast deserts, and the cities are ruled by it's highly religious. and the religious organization is called the Covenant, and they rule the cities, and then kind of outside the cities is kind of the wastelands. In the cities, the Covenant believe in the great powers. Now in the old days, it was always assumed that they were worshipping chaos gods. And in the Lorgar book, it literally is fucking obvious. It basically just says that they're worshipping chaos gods, which I don't like, because one, it's just obvious, and two, it kind of doesn't make sense for what happened later on. But anyways, Lorgar's found in the wastelands by one of these kind of nomad groups, and Corpheiron, who's been kicked out of the Covenant for being a dickhead, finds Lorgar and basically becomes his teacher. And he's basically a highly abusive dad that just beats Lorgar, is always kind of putting him down, but he teaches him, and Lorgar grows, and eventually Lorgar, because he's a Primarch, takes over. And Corpheiron kind of realizes that Lorgar's going to take over, and he uses Lorgar to basically get himself back in the Covenant and take power again. He wants to be in charge, and he sees Lorgar as a gift from the great powers to put him back in charge. And Lorgar starts building followers. He's great at talking to people. He's great at getting people on his side. And I mean, long story short, he takes over the Covenant, but he starts having dreams of the Emperor. So whereas before they talked about the great powers, which is the four gods, he talks about the one god, which is the Emperor. And he basically starts a holy war against the Covenant, which is split in half. Some believe in the old god, some believe in the one god. Holy war lasts for 6 years. Lorgar wins. And a year after that, the Emperor arrives, and it's kind of like, oh, here's the one god. And yeah, so basically Lorgar's entire upbringing was religious, and he believed in the one god was coming. But obviously when the Emperor arrived, he's like, ta-da, I'm not a fucking god. Which obviously Lorgar didn't believe. So Lorgar takes control of his legion, and he keeps quiet about the whole kind of the Emperor's a god thing. But after a few years, he kind of starts kind of talking to his close confidants. You know, he starts kind of putting the word out that basically the Emperor is a god. And over the decades, the Legion kind of starts changing. These heralds who were dressed in black become chaplains, and he uses them to kind of start spreading the message of the Emperor being a god. And basically he turns a Legion whose entire job was to stop people believing in gods. He gets them to believe that the Emperor is a god. And again, it's quite a cool story, because it's kind of explained in like, they believed in the imperial truth, and that was almost their religion. You know, they were zealots, and that was their religion. And all he's done is replace the imperial truth with the Emperor as a god, and then they've believed that. You know, it's said in the Black Book, and I quite like it. Where was it? When the final Imperial Herald embraced the faith and the last of the old iconoclasts died, Lorgar changed his legion's name to the Word Bearers. So it took decades of him kind of slowly changing the Legion. And once it was changed, boom, they're the Word Bearers. And no one really gave a fuck. Like, stories started coming back to High Command and the Imperium, and no one really cared. And what the Word Bearers were doing is they'd start a campaign, they'd take a world over into compliance, but then they would spend time on that world building, you know, temples to the Emperor, building statues. They'd have these heralds, these chaplains of the Word Bearer chaplains would go around kind of giving speeches about how the Emperor is a god, and basically spent ages, like the amount of worlds they conquered compared to other legions was low, because they spent so long building these worlds up. But actually what they left behind was a world more, or more compliant to the Imperium. Like they were balls deep in Imperium. They're in the Imperium. Whereas, you know, other legions, like the Sons of Horus you're talking about, they'd go in, smash everyone up, and then they'd fuck off. And they wouldn't necessarily leave a completely compliant world behind, whereas that's what the word bearers were doing. And it was this that came to the attention of the emperor. It wasn't the fact that he was calling them a god that he cared about. It was the fact that they just weren't going as quick as he wanted them to that kind of pissed the emperor off. And then they sent out emissaries to these worlds, and the emissaries landed and they were like, oh dear, we've got a problem here, because all these citizens are going around Bible bashing.
They were also one of the biggest legion, right? They were like 200,000.
Yeah, well, not quite the biggest, but they were huge. Yeah,
they should be working harder than
they should have. Yeah. But I love the fact that it wasn't the fact of what they were doing; it was the fact that they weren't
not quick enough. Yeah.
So yeah, they sent emissaries out, and they realised, like, oh dear, we've got a problem. And that's when the emperor found out, look, your son's calling you a god. Which brings us to Monarchia. So the 17th Legion had brought the planet Kerr into compliance, and they built the city of Monarchia, which was called the Perfect City. Basically, it was literally the perfect city, full of statues of the emperor. Everyone thought he was a god, and it was the perfect place to live. So Emperor thought he'd prove a point, and him and the Ultramarines flew over there. And depending on where you read, some stories will tell you that they killed everyone and they destroyed the city. But I think that the actual story is the Ultramarines removed all the citizens and then flattened the city. And the planet Kerr called for the word bearers because they're like, oh, help us, we're being attacked. And the word bearers came. And the whole legion, it's awesome in the story of the whole legion in the ashes of the city, and the emperor stood there and he just goes, kneel, and all the legionnaires, they can't even stop it, they just all fucking kneel because of the power of the emperor. And basically they get a bollocking, Lorgar gets a bollocking, and they get told to stop believing in gods because they don't exist. Fuck off back to the crusade, do your job. It's basically literally the emperor is like, go do your job, you're not a priest, you're a warrior, go do your job. Now what you've done is you've taken the one thing Lorgar believed in and you've completely crushed it. So Lorgar went to his bedroom and cried for several weeks. And the Legion didn't really do anything. And essentially you had Cor Pharaon and Erebus, two of the biggest dickheads.
Yeah.
Two of the biggest snakes in the whole of the heresy, like literally the worst two people in the Legion, who also happen to be Lorgar's best mates. So they're just whispering poison in his ear. And this is the bit, going back to the Primarch book I'm reading now, is in the Primarch book, it's quite obvious that they worship the four Chaos Gods. Whereas in the original story, this is where Cor Pharaon and Erebus start telling Lorgar, look, if your father isn't a god and he doesn't want you to worship him, there are other gods out there who want you to worship him. And this is what I don't get, because it's like, well, he's heard of them because he knows them. So you're not telling them anything new here. So anyways, so this is the point where Lorgar, Erebus and Cor Pharaon basically, and it's, they've basically had this planned forever, is they use this opportunity to get Lorgar to believe in the Chaos Gods. And Lorgar, being Lorgar, goes balls deep into it, reads everything, and he goes on a pilgrimage where basically he ends up going into the Eye of Terror and has a chat with Keros Fate Weaver, is it? Weaver?
Yeah.
And basically he goes full in on the Chaos Gods, but he doesn't choose one, he goes Chaos, what do you call it?
Undivided.
Undivided, yeah. And they worship all four gods. And yeah, that's kind of the start of the heresy, basically. I mean, they've already been in the heresy. The Cor Pharaon is made, I wrote it down, the Master of Faith, and Erebus becomes the first chaplain. And basically Lorgar sends them out, how they did originally, where they turned them from the Imperial Truth to the Emperor. They then changed the Legion from the Emperor to the Chaos Gods. And again, this is done kind of slowly. The Legion slowly descends into the Chaos Gods. And at this point, Lorgar sends Erebus to Davin, is it? Davin?
Davin,
yeah. And like you've mentioned, sets up was it the planetary governor?
Yeah.
Who he
yeah, it's like something like Eugene Timber or something.
Yeah, and he ends up stabbing Horus with a rusty knife. And
tetanus and the warp zone.
I mean, there's loads to go in there. I'm not talk about that. But
what I would add into that is that after Monarchia, while they sort of begin to transition towards their fanaticism towards the Chaos Gods, they do have 40 years of, on the surface, dedicated crusading in order to almost kind of to turn as many planets as possible towards what will be the Chaos Gods, but also on the surface to make it seem like they are contrite and everything is normal. Yeah,
and it's written in the Black Books that actually the Legion starts performing almost better than the Sons of Horus. They literally they don't care about the world. Compliance. Go in, smash it up, fuck off. And kind of everyone back in the kind of high command, the Emperor, they're all like, oh, it worked, oh, good, but what they don't see is everything that's going on underneath. Another thing I forgot to mention is when Lorgar first got to the Legion and he was trying to turn it to kind of worshipping the Emperor, he actually wrote the Lectitio Divinitatis.
Lectitio Divinitatis. I think it's called the Lectitio Divinitatis.
No.
The Lectitio is the...
I studied Latin.
The 18.
Lectitio Divinitatis. But that was basically the book that started the Imperial cult.
Yeah.
So the irony being that the bloke who fell the hardest is the guy who wrote the book that in the 40k world, everyone has it in their pocket. You know what I mean?
The great irony, right?
I love it. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. And then there's other stuff like the Drop Site Massacre is when they kind of go fully chaos and they show the Galvor back and they paint their armor kind of the crimson, and you've got the whole betrayal at Calf, which I won't go into, but basically they try and get their revenge on the Ultramarines. But yeah, I love it. I think they're an awesome Legion. I think like people don't like them because they're the bad guys. That's why I like them.
They know they're the bad guys. They know they're...
And I do like the fact that Lorgar's kind of, although he's a Primarch, like his whole life has been spent being manipulated by Corphayron and basically Erebus.
Yeah.
Like he's obviously like your immense intelligence, but he's obviously got flaws because he can just be like manipulated by these people. But yeah, like the Legion tactics, again, throughout the whole time, their kind of tactics don't really change. It's kind of mass infantry. The word bearers tended to use like larger tactical squads, so they always have like 20-man tactical squads, but it never really changed, like other legions preferring armored this and that. Like their main thing was just like their zealot, their kind of cold determination.
They're iconoclasts, aren't they? They just smashed up the symbols of whatever.
Yeah,
interesting. Should we have a look at the color plates?
Yeah, let's look at the color plates. So
that's awesome.
I love this. I was saying earlier on, like the one on the left is a new color plate. and it's more like how I paint my word bearers. I used grey instead of black on the shoulder pads. And then on the right, we got Ashen Circle, which was one of their elite units. These were like their destroyer cadre, who would kind of go in and they'd destroy everyone, and then they'd destroy all the kind of, like we said before, all the iconography and the books and everything else.
It's like they destroy not only people but cultures as well, right? I think.
Yeah, and ideas. Like that's the main one. They would destroy like ideas. They would. It wasn't just a case of like destroying a religion. It was kind of that entire belief system. I mean, if you imagine it in this planet now, like how mental it would be to just switch off like Christianity or like Muslims or whatever, to just flick a switch and turn it off. Like you can't do it, can you? So these people just literally go in, murder everyone, and then destroy any evidence that there ever was that ever existed, so that future generations won't even know about it.
Yeah, because
it's no longer there. What's the next color, please? Okay. So some of the other units that I will quickly talk about. So chaplains were kind of much more powerful and respected in the Legion. The Gal Vorbak, the Dark Brethren, were the kind of original possessed Marines. They were a fusion of Space Marine and Demon. And the Gal Vorbak were basically like the how do you say it? Like the best ever possessed. They were like the most powerful fusion of kind of Space Marine and Demon. And they had the Marigal Tainted Dreadnought, which was basically the story I read about it was the first one created was basically a dying Gal Vorbak that was shoved into a contenter and then created this kind of like demonic fusion of contemptor, marine and demon life, which is pretty fucking cool, really.
An awesome model. It's a good model.
Yeah. And then again, their weapons, they used tainted weapons. So they had relics from the Great Crusades that they kind of used their dark arts on. They had warp fire weapons, which were basically plasma weapons that fire kind of etheric fire, which produces a scream that can drive warriors to panic and dismay. They used flamers a lot, obviously for burning of books and knowledge. And the axe rake, which was used by the Ashen Circle, is basically a reinforced axe that could be used to grab people down and drag people down, but could also be used to kind of topple statues and iconography. And it's not really mentioned, but power mauls. I always imagine power mauls with the word bearers, because Lorgar uses a power maul, and even in the books when he's young, he picks up like a power maul. Basically, it's basically like a scrap metal power maul. So yeah, I quite like the power maul for the word bearers. It's quite I don't know, it just fits them really. I don't know.
Yeah, the weapon of a chaplain, right? I think. Yeah. Right, should we go to the books?
Yeah. So that's the one I'm reading at the minute, Lorgar, Bearer of the Word. I'll be honest, it's a hard read. I don't think it's the best book. Obviously, they mentioned him. They're in Betrayer, which again is like a fucking brilliant book. But the thing with the word bearers, and I was looking through the different books, is they kind of appear in almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Because you've always got kind of Erebus or someone popping up,
yeah,
and doing something. But some of the other books, what have we got? Battle for the Abyss, The First Heretic.
The First Heretic, I think, is a really important.
Yeah,
I
think that is, if you want to get into word bearers, read The First Heretic. Like that describes the what did I call it? The pilgrimage, really, doesn't it?
Yeah,
where he
exactly.
fucks off to the Eye of Terror.
There's some cool. You get a really decent glimpse of like the custodians as well, who
that's the one where they're
followed
fighting
him around because they're like the eyes of the emperor. So and you get your first real decent glimpse of the custodian guard there as well.
That's the one where one of them keeps fighting him, doesn't he?
Yeah,
it's not Argyle Tower, is it?
No, that's who he fights, but it's
I don't know the guy's name.
I've forgotten what the guy is called, but
basically he's fighting him and he's always losing.
Yeah. And then becomes Gal back and then it kicks his ass. Yeah,
it's like, and the custode's like, I'm not sure about this. Something's fishy here. So the first heretic, and I'm actually like, having done this, I'm gonna go and reread the first heretic.
It's a quality book.
No Fear. Betrayer, we said, Mark of Calf, and Aurelian, The Ice Stares Back, which is a short story.
That is a great book. I
haven't read it.
Aaron Dempsey Belden book, but it's fantastic. Yeah, it's
I don't think, do they sell it anymore?
I imagine you can get it off Audible or
because that's one of mine to read. So go check them out.
It's fantastic.
Cool.
Because it's really cool because that is about his pilgrimage. Because you obviously in the first heretic you see the Gal Volbert go into the Eye of Terror, but the Aurelian is about what happens when he himself.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm getting confused with that, and okay, that's right. Yeah, that's the Gal Volbert going in, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
It's cool. Right, I think we're on I think this is the last Legion, isn't it?
This is.
Cool.
Alpha Legion. Okay. Last or the first, whatever you want to believe.
The Alpha, the Omega,
because God only knows. Okay, so let's start with Alpharis, the Primarch. Depending what you read, where you read it, it's. I think in Black Book, I think it's the third Black Book. I think there's about 3 or 4 different accounts of his origin account, and each one at the end it says this is a lie. This is a lie. One of the I think that there's a really good one that he's discovered on the bridge of the Lunar Wolves flagship, and after a little bit of a confrontation, and Horus then chooses not to take him out and realizes that it's Alpharius, and then it just said the last sentence is this account is a lie, and and there's like 3 or 4 of them in the Black Book, which I think. It's basically that's the Alpha Legion through and through, isn't it? It's just this kind of
you choose
playing,
what to believe with it. I think
absolutely playing both sides. Are they the good guys? Are they the bad guys? They keep shouting for the Emperor and all that bullshit, but are they? It's So Alpharius. Apparently, again, according to some parts of the lore, he looks exactly like the rest of his legionnaires. So he can come and go. Others can take his place. He can be just a normal rank and file guy with a bolter and some, and things like that. And there's obviously the big reveal, which was in the Legion book by Dan Abnett, which we'll get to in a minute, was that Alpharius is actually one of 2, and there's him and Omegan. So there's 2 Primarchs of the Alpha Legion. But also, these guys are super tricky, happy to wear other Legion colours, happy to wear no colours, happy to wear purple, happy to wear grey. These guys will do anything and everything to get what they want and spin a web of lies. I really like the Alpha Legion. That kind of thing really sort of sold them to me. They were the first army that I painted when I got back into Heresy.
They were the last, but the official account is that they were the last Primarchs found, right? Or Alpharius is the last one found.
Yeah.
They are the youngest of the legions, but they have some of the most stable gene seed of the legions as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So isn't there a story of them turning up with the Dark Angels and just being like, "We're here to help you"?
Yes.
And the Dark Angels are literally like,
"Who the fuck are you? Who's this guy?" Yeah, just walks onto the
I love that.
Onto the flagship bridge and just sort of sits down. Yeah.
Hi guys.
I can't remember which story that is.
No, I can't remember. But I just love that. They're just, they're just literally like, what? Who the fuck are you? Who are the new guys? Hi.
Yeah, the rumours that the only other Primarch that Alpharius is close to is Horus as well. Apparently had no sort of dealings with any of the others, wasn't really bothered or interested in hanging out with any of the others. Yeah, so that's them in a quick nutshell, really.
What are
no
what
Legion
kind of,
homeworld.
What kind of warfare do they conduct?
Oh, they are. Oh, good God. So there's quite a few. So if I have a quick read of this, observe strategic tendencies, surprise assault, sabotage, infiltration, insurgency and counter-insurgency warfare, multiple vector attack, interplanetary pursuit and decimation campaigns, and deep range raiding operations.
Yeah, okay.
I guess that kind of...
So there's definitely like two strands, I think, to the Alpha Legion. So the like they are happy to work alongside agents who are humans, aren't they? They're happy to use kind of different assets in order to get their get whatever means or whatever they want to do. But they also have these things called the harrowings, don't they? Which is like full-on decimation campaigns, which are probably more traditional in the way that
a Legion operates. The Legions operates.
Right?
Yeah. I have no problem sort of, like you say, manipulating the local sort of human military sort of powers, or to get what they want. But they're an interesting Legion. I know some people don't like them and think they're way too tricky and it's just all a big mind fuck. But I kind of like all that, Let's have a picture of some colour. Yes, obviously these guys, another metallic kind of looking Legion. I guess you can paint them however you want, really. Nice.
I mean, the one on the left has some sort of like bluey, sort of like an imperial blue, sort of purpley blue tones to it, doesn't it? That one.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love the fact, like we said before we started recording this, that even the color plates aren't the same colors.
Yeah, they're not.
There's no right or wrong, is there?
No. You see them in metallic, see them in flat colours on the table, and they look great. Yeah, they're really cool, really good. What else we got? And again, different colour for the.
This is almost Mark turquoise, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're sort of three-headed Hydra heraldry, and the unbroken chain as well. Yeah, really cool, really good. And then some books. The Alfaris novel, which Med, you were saying about earlier on just before the recording, about how great.
Yeah, so basically, spoilers there. So if you don't want to know what happens in this book, fast forward a couple of minutes. But I think Paul is right in the way that the issue with the Alpha Legion is that the Forge World and the Black Library writers have constantly gone through this thing of we don't really know what's true and what's not, and I suspect that bits of stories put together are probably what really has happened. But the Alfaris book is probably the most interesting, the comic book, because it changes the canon of the 30k universe in a way that no other book has. So in the book, Alfaris is actually the first found Primarch rather than Horus, but Alfaris is kept secret from Horus and all the other Primarchs. In order to basically, I suppose the best way it's described is that he's almost like the last line of defense of the Imperium, and the Emperor Valdor and the Sigillite work with him to train him in order to be the last line of defense and to be the protector. And he does a lot of insurgency campaigns and things like that. And the story kind of tracks Alfaris's journey to eventually find his brother, who they have a link together. I think warp link is probably the wrong way to describe it, but they do have some sort of ethereal link. But it's certainly a story which changes the narrative of what we've seen before. But it's quite cool that it introduces characters like the Sigillite and Valdor, because they're not characters that we traditionally see alongside Alfaris. Whether it's true or whether it's just another lie, we don't know. But it's I think that if you are somebody who the Alpha Legion is a really good Legion if you're into that counterinsurgency, if you're into tricking your enemies, if you're more into spycraft than you are into warfare, I think it's definitely the Legion for you.
Definitely.
I think I need to read this book, to be fair, because I love the Alpha Legion, and I don't like the way they play in the game. but if they played more like they do in the books, I would definitely do Alpha Legion. Like I love that. I love the whole tricksy.
Yeah.
You know, is it true? Is it not? And then it's just the endless, like, oh no, that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. So
yeah,
I'm gonna have to read that. I think
it's a good book. You'll really enjoy it. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Obviously, the aforementioned Legion by Dan Abnett.
Yeah,
which is another classic, well, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was one of the quite early books, wasn't it? But I think the big thing about this book was that as you said, Paul, right at the start, the reveal that we get that Alfarius is the second. Sorry, Omegon is the second Primarch, and which is why and explains why Alfarius is smaller than all the other Primarchs, right? Because the gene seed has been split between the two, but it allows them to do things that other legions wouldn't be able to. So Alfarius can serve in multiple different war zones because there's two of them. But I think the biggest thing about Legion is that it introduces a sort of a group called the Cabal, which is a really integral theme throughout, or thread throughout, the entire series of the Horus Heresy, which is that you are introduced to these people called Perpetuals who can live forever, and these Perpetuals, of which the Emperor is one, kind of change the course of human events through human history, and the Alpha Legion learn about the Cabal. They learn about one of the operatives of the Cabal, but also why the Cabal offers them basically a choice, and you find out through that choice and through that offer why the Alpha Legion choose Horus's side over the side of the Emperor. And I think that to understand the motivations of the Legion, I think reading Legion is a really important book. So if you're interested in Alpha Legion and just Alpha Legion, maybe start there as a book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another couple of mentions. Praetorian of Dawn. I think it's another good. It's quite a good. It shows them doing everything that we've just explained.
Especially around harrowings as well. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's obviously operatives on Terra that get woken up, and and things like that, which is really good. The Seventh Serpent, which is a novella by Graham McNeil. That's another good one.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and another one that really stood out for me quite early on was from the Primarchs book. That had the short stories in. Had the novellas.
Oh yeah.
And there's one at the end called The Serpent Beneath. That's a really, really good one, and that's a team of Alpha Legion guys going to attack. I think it's called the Tenebrae facility, which is like a communications outpost.
Yes,
and one of Omegon's generals downs some what he thinks is just like a drink of like a ceremonial sort of wine, and turns out to be Omegon's blood, and he takes on Omegon's identity and things like that. It's really, really cool, really, really good. Yeah, awesome. It's a novella. It's like a short, but it's a really good one. Awesome. And then obviously Wolf King. They're in Wolf King. Scars as well.
Yeah.
So doing their thing.
Was it the Alpha Legion that tried killing Gilliman?
Yes. Yeah, they tried to kill Gilliman in Unremembered Empire.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
and
that's a good story.
Yeah, Unremembered Empire is a good one. It's a good one. I do like it.
Yeah, it's good. Yes,
it's a good book.
Awesome.
Cool. That brings us to the end of the Choose Your Legion main section of this episode. And next episode we'll be doing the Filthy Loyalists. So look forward to that. We'll take a quick break now, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay, and we're back. So now we're going to go into our Tactica section. Over the last couple of weeks, Warhammer community have put out a daily article, give us a quick look at each of the legions. We've had reactions, some war gear options, some specific rules, and warlord traits, things like that. So we're going to have a quick look at these. This episode, we're going to do the first 9 legions, and then in the next episode, we'll do the back 9. Let's get into it. So first up, Dark Angels. And here we go. So we've got a couple of new things for these guys.
Right, I'll read this one. So Stormwing unit subtype. All models in a unit under the effect of this hexagrammaton unit subtype gain a bonus of +1 to hit when rolling to hit as part of a shooting attack, including during a reaction with a bolter, combi bolter, or bolt pistol. Meh, I think it's all right. I think it's designed for Stormwing. So it's your troops, because that's what Stormwing is all about. It's kind of, it makes you feel like I suppose it makes you feel like an Imperial Fist, which is good. But I think it's all right. I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's all right. You're going to be hitting on 2s right now. So, yeah. And then Iron Wing, this I think is much better. All models in a unit under the effect of the hexagrammaton unit subtype may reroll fail to hit rolls of 1 when targeting an enemy model with the vehicle unit type. Additionally, a model with this unit subtype and the vehicle unit type makes all snapshots at ballistic skills 2 instead of BS1. So that is actually pretty good, because I think that the rerolling 1s for against vehicles is really useful, really good. But also it says a unit subtype and the vehicle unit type makes all snapshots of BS2. So if you've got like heavy support squads that also have the high Iron Wing subtype, I'm assuming that you can hit on 5s now rather than 6s, which is pretty cool.
Well, no, because it says and the vehicle unit type.
Oh, does that mean combined? So it's got to have unit subtype and...
I presume so, yeah. Additionally, a model with this unit subtype and the vehicle unit type makes a all snap. I'd read that as you have to...
So, but the only thing that could take that would be, or one of the only things would be Dreadnoughts, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I still think that's pretty good. I quite like the Iron Wing one. I think that's pretty good. So Stormwing, yeah, Iron Wing, I like it.
Cool.
I think the Stormwing could be all right on things like Fury of the Legion, because you can do it every turn now, can't you?
I don't know enough about Fury, but I think it's all right. I just think it's just like, yeah. I think
amazing, is it?
No, I think it'd be really, really useful. I think personally, I'd prefer +1 to wound than +1 to hit. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Never happy.
The 3rd Legion.
Yay!
What an amateur, eh?
Do you want me to read this one?
Yeah, go for it.
Flawless execution. On a turn in which they make a successful charge, even if that charge is considered a disordered charge, models with the Legionnaires Astartes Emperor's Children special rule make their attacks in an assault at 1 initiative step higher than normal, after any initiative modifiers from other special rules have been taken into account. Models with the Legionnaires Astartes Emperor's Children special rule and the vehicle unit type gain a bonus of +1 to all to hit rolls made for defensive weapons when making a shooting attack as part of a reaction.
Yeah, that's really good. That's too good. I think the top one. I think
that is. Woo. Yeah.
Because it says after any initiative modifiers from other special rules have been taken into account. Does that mean your power fists are now initiative 2?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that's big, isn't it?
Yeah. So you need to basically charge Emperor's Children. Like, you don't want to be charged by them. You want to charge them or shoot them, because they'll just be too good in close combat, I think.
But it does fit in with the theme that I was talking about before of speed.
Fast. Yeah.
I like that.
And I think the defensive weapons, we saw the defensive weapons in action at the open day when you attack a vehicle, and I think that just having +1 to hit is just pretty good as a thing, right?
Yeah, it's all right. It's
not amazing, but it makes it. They've already got an amazing rule there. They don't need any more amazing rules.
Yeah,
I think that all depends on, because you use a reaction to do an Overwatch now, don't you?
Yeah.
So if you're getting charged from multiple units, then you might not. You know what I mean? That's a bit situational, like. Because you can only use it once, you might not really care that vehicle gets, because they only get to shoot their defensive weapons.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'd have to look at defensive weapons and whether we're making a shooting attack as part of a reaction. Okay, yeah, it's all right. But the top rule is amazing. So
top rule's jam dandy. Cool.
Oh, go on, Lee. Do this one.
Paragon of Excellence. When any friendly unit within 12 inches of Warlord with this trait, including the Warlord and any unit has joined, passes a morale check, it gains +1 weapon skill until the end of the controlling player's next turn. This benefit can only be applied once per game turn to any single unit. In addition, an army whose Warlord has this trait may make an additional reaction during the opposing player's movement phase, as long as the Warlord has not been removed as a casualty.
Yeah, that's really good, isn't it? +1 weapon skill combined with the +1 initiative, I think.
Yeah.
Tasty. Naughty.
Cool. Right. Next up.
Yeah.
Iron Warriors. Okay, Rack and Ruin. When a model with this special rule makes a shooting attack or a melee attack targeting a model with the Dreadnought, Automata, Vehicle, or Building unit type, it gains +1 to the strength of that attack.
Oh.
This is too good. It's too good.
This just makes me want to run Iron Warriors.
Because you're +1 to the strength. So basically, your melter guns now are like handheld las cannon or the range.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. That's big.
Yeah.
That's big.
Your plasma strength 8.
Yeah. Your melter guns are basically las cannons with armor bane, aren't they?
Yeah, and AP1.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then your even your making shooting attack or medical kind of model with the unit. So even like against, even your bolters are +1 strength against vehicles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Wow.
Which is nuts. That as a rule.
That is tasty, isn't it?
Yes.
They needed something, because before all their rules were literally like you can destroy buildings. They
can destroy everything.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we've got some weapon profiles. So shrapnel pistol, 10-inch range, strength 4, AP dash, pistol 1 pinning, bolter 18-inch range, strength 4, AP dash, rapid fire pinning. And
it's interesting about the pistol, isn't it? I mean, it'd be useful to like as you're about to go into close combat, pin them and then attack them. I suppose that might be useful to have that on a pistol. But shrapnel cannon. I mean, they're just always pinning, and pinning is just going to be a major thing in this edition because of the leadership. It's gone down for everybody. So I think anything with pinning is just going to be a pain in the ass to deal with.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll have to pay for these.
I would have thought so.
Yeah, because depending on how much they cost, depends on whether it's worth.
They're taking it, yeah.
Because like you say, you could stick one of them on just sergeants or
just roll it and hope for the pin.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Next up.
Oh, I like them.
We've got the scars.
Cool. All right, this one I'll do this one. So Legion Sky. Oh, so this is Trog Bros. So this is the one we know and love. So Sky Hunter squadrons and Legion Outrider squadrons may be selected as troop choices in attachment using this right. That is, we know that, but it gains the line subtype as well. So I assume that means it's scoring.
Yeah.
Legion Sky Hunter squadrons and Legion Outrider squadrons may also be selected as elites in a detachment. So if you filled up your troop choices, you can also take Outriders and Sky Hunters in your elites for some mad reason. And all models with the infantry unit type and attachment is the right one, gain the outflank special role. Okay, so that's quite good because if you've got infantry units and they've got a dedicated transport, then that will confer so you can outflank with some vehicles as well from there. So
unless it's changed.
Unless it's changed, but it's just what we know already, which is that the White Scars can take bikes and jet bikes as troops. So from Trog Bros. Cool. Next one. Born to the Saddle. This is their rule, right? Which I thought
this is the one that everyone's.
I haven't read it. Yeah, go on.
This Warlord. No, this is not. I don't think this is the Legion Warlord. I think this.
This is a Warlord trait. Isn't it?
This Warlord and all models in the same army with the Legionaries of White Scar special rule and the cavalry unit type ignore all the effects of difficult terrain and gain a 4-up invuln save against all wounds inflicted by failed dangerous terrain tests they are called upon to make. So that suggests to me that dangerous terrain now basically ignores armor saves, and it goes on your invulnerable save. So if your massive hulking space marine trips over on a hill, it ignores his armor, and you're dependent on your armor's invulnerable save to survive a hill trip.
Basically, what you're telling me in the far future, just throw a rock at someone.
In addition, an army whose warlord has this trait may make an additional reaction during the opposing player's movement phase as long as the warlord has not been removed. Yeah, that's good. They're all about speed, right? I think then their other like Legion trait is adding like movement onto stuff as well. So they're just going to be a fast Legion, and having that reaction in the movement phase is just going to make them super mobile, I think.
Cool.
End of
the Wolves.
Here we go. This is where my dyslexia comes out. Storm Roar, Psychic Power. Why do I get the fucking long ones?
Shut up and read it.
No, that's all right. Instead of making a shooting attack, the controlling player of a cycle, this psychic power may select a single friendly unit with at least one model within 6 inches of the cycle that is composed entirely of models with the infantry, cavalry, or dreadnought unit types. The chosen unit gains the shrouded 5+ special rule until the beginning of the controlling player's next shooting phase. When using this power, the controlling player may choose to have the psyker take a psychic check. If the check is passed, then the effect is improved to shrouded 3+. If the check is failed, the shrouded 5+ special rule is applied to the target unit, and the psyker suffers perils of the war.
Right. Okay. So a 3+ cover save. That's actually pretty.
That's
good. Like if you imagine like so that is composed entirely of models with the infantry. Okay, so just shrouded on your Leviathan Dreadnought, just walking up. As long as you got your psychic in area, you can just get shrouded on it now if you pass your psychic check. That's not too bad.
It's all right, but to be fair, shrouded 5+ is kind of it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. But shrouded 3+ is pretty good.
Interesting what the perils of the warp tables like in this edition. If it's
I quite like the fact that you have to risk it to kind of improve it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Storm Roar, covered by the storm. I like it. Yeah, that's cool.
Fists. Okay, Rite of War Templar Assault. Units of Templar Brethren may be taken as troops choices in an attachment using this Rite of War. All models in a Templar Brethren unit taken as part of a detachment using this Rite of War gain the Heart of the Legion special rule and the line unit subtype.
So Heart of the Legion, is that it gets a feel no pain?
Yeah.
Right, okay. That's nuts.
Within, I think it's like 3 inches of a objective, yeah.
Right, okay. That's tasty. For the duration of any turn in which a unit of Templar Brethren taken as a part of the detachment using this Rite of War disembark from a model, all models in the disembarking unit gain the Rage 2.
What? They're also nuts in this edition as well. They're 2 wounds apiece, I think, now as well.
How many attacks do they have?
They have like 3 attacks because they've got close combat weapons and 2 base, and then they got 1 for the charge. So they get 5 on the charge, and that with that.
For the duration of any turn in which a unit. I guess you're only going to really do it once, aren't you?
You only need to do it once.
I know, but you're not going to keep getting in and out, are you?
No, it's very unlikely that's the case. But basically, Harry's
that's insane.
Harry's Templar Brethren out of Land Raiders has just become unstoppable. Like that's not.
It's just that is nails.
I feel like Harry knew something we didn't.
Agreed.
Okay, Murder Boys for you, Meadows.
Okay, here we go. All right, talent for murder. So this is nuts. This must make them top tier now. I think when a unit made up entirely of models with this special rule attacks during the fight subphase or makes a shooting attack against an enemy unit that is pinned, falling back, or outnumbered by the attacking unit, it gains a bonus of +1 to wound or armor penetration rolls made during the shooting attack or assault. So that's particularly good during the assault phase because they don't need to be pinned, falling back, or outnumbered. But the shooting is a little cheeky bonus as well because if they're running away from you, then you can shoot them and you get +1 to wound as well, which is bloody brilliant. Which is. Yeah, that feels completely right and quite thematic for Night Lords. And then basically it's the same rule as last time, which is that when you determine it, you use bulky as 2 models, right?
Yeah.
So let's have a look. When determining if a unit is outnumbered, models with a bulky special rule count as the number of models equal to the value included as part of the special rule. So if it's got bulky 2, it will be 2 places or 2 spots. Models with the vehicle unit type count as 10 models for the purpose of determining if the model is outnumbered. Right, so Dreadnought with that is 10 models against like whatever it's going against, right? So Dreadnoughts with that I think could be really good, but then a 1 will always be a fail, because if you've got a big power fist going into attack squad, you don't need to wound it on. Like a 1 is just going to be an automatic fail, right? So interesting. So I'll be interested to see how that interacts with vehicles more specifically, and depending on what they're going to be armored with, I think will be interesting. Chainblade. So these, so this is the unique kind of like war gear. So you've got Chainblade, which is +1 strength, AP3, melee, shred, and breaching, is AP2 on a 6-up. The shred's really tasty. Chainglaive is +2 strength, and even then, actually combined with that talent for murder rule, would be that would be pretty good. It's melee, 2-handed, shred, and breaching, so AP2 on a 6. So it used to be rending probably, and now it's AP2 on a 6. So you don't get the so I think the difference between breaching and rending now is that breaching is just AP2, whereas rending you could have got the armor pen or the additional D3 for
okay.
And then Headman's Axe is ×2 strength, so really strength 8, AP3, melee, 2-handed, shred, and breaching 6-up. So that's not an unwieldy weapon.
No, that's good.
That's not bad actually.
I mean, all of them are good, to be fair.
Yeah. I wonder how much they'll cost, but they're not.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. Cool. Next up.
Here we go. In Carmine Fury, all models with the Legionnaires Astartes Blood Angel special will require 1 lower result to wound than they would normally, to a minimum of 2+ on any turn in which they are part of a successful charge against an enemy unit, if that charge is counted as disordered. Even if that charge is counted as disordered. This effect applies regardless of the weapon they're using. For example, if using a strength 4 melee weapon and attacking a target with toughness of 4, the Blood Angel will require 3+ to wound rather than the usual 4+. In addition, any vehicle the Legionnaires Astartes Blood Angel special rule that makes a ram attack increases the strength of any hits inflicted by +1 to a maximum of strength 10. So the first thing I'd say is hopefully they change the ram attack rules, because no one knows how it works. Literally no one. I
think this rule is still quite good. I mean, it's the rule that they had before. I think on the whole, the Blood Angels have been nerfed more than anything. But it's still the rule they had before, and it was always useful going against automata and things like that, right? So
I think it's do chain blades have shred now?
I think they do, yeah.
So I mean, with that makes it even better on top. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The Fires of Heaven. Any model with the Legionnaires Astartes Blood Angels special rule may exchange a plasma pistol for an Inferno pistol for no additional cost. The weapon listed here is counted as a melter weapon for those rules that affect such weapons. So I mean, it is what it was. Range 6, strength 8, AP1, pistol, armor bane. So you've got to be within 3 inches to take effect.
It's just going to be so much better because there's no armored serum right now, right? So
yeah. So
put that on your Moritats. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, true. To be fair, you jump them in and then shoot up some contemptors or something.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. Yeah, really, really good. Cool. What's next?
And the Iron Hands reduces scales. All shooting attacks made against a model with this special rule that does not have the vehicle unit type suffer a modifier of -1 to the strength of the attack. Excuse me. Models with this special rule and the vehicle unit type instead gain the it will not die 6-up special rule. Good God. Or if such a model already has a variant of the it will not die X special rule, then the value of that special rule is increased by +1. For example, a model with the vehicle unit type that already had the it will not die 6 up. Jesus wept, what? And the Legion of Stars Iron Hand special rule would instead gain the it will not die 5 up special rule.
Okay, so it's the same rule as before, apart from now vehicles have it will not die.
Yeah.
But then, so vehicle unit type instead gain it. Okay, so so it's made against model with a special rule. So the Medusa scales, though, because it's a Legiones Astartes rule, the Contemptors will also get the Medusa scales as well. I don't know how that interacts with it will not die, because it's.
But I think Contemptors have the vehicle rule, don't they?
But then is it? Oh, special rule that does not have the vehicle unit type. Okay, cool. I was worried that we were going to have to see Contemptors that were -1 to.
I'm pretty sure the
Contemptors
have the vehicle special rule.
Yeah, no, I reckon so too. Yeah.
Because otherwise, that would be fucking. All you'll see is Iron Hand during the ancient list.
Oh man, it's still just such a good. I mean, bolters they're just strength 3 against normal dudes. So
yeah,
it was a really good rule.
Guess,
it was a good rule in the old edition. It would be a good rule in this edition.
I guess does that reduce? I don't know how the rule works in this edition, but potentially reduce your doubling out.
Yeah, I think that's that. Yeah, I suspect so.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, so strength 8 would just not double out anymore.
Yeah.
That was the same in the other one. Awesome.
Cool. And that brings us to the end, guys, of episode 3 of Heresy Hammer. So yeah, if you could like, subscribe, comment, and share on YouTube. Send us an email if you want to get in touch. Use the hashtag Heresy Hammer for all your models on the social medias, and we'll try and feature them in the next show, or the upcoming shows, I should say. Yeah, if you've got any comments, if you're going to put them on YouTube, be kind. Don't be a bit of a dick. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's crazy shit going on in the world. Just like, don't be one of those people.
Be nice,
but exactly, be nice.
Your comment just won't go up if you're not nice.
Screw
them all. So
absolutely, yeah. And if you want to reach out to us sort of individually about anything, please do. And same again, really. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. That's all from me.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.